やめてたまるかお前と俺は売れたからさ一生かけた一度の絆心配するな最低だけの最高だってずっといつまでもずっといつまでも殴り合ってけなし合いて立ちがいる
And welcome everyone to a brand new episode of Dr. Keith Presents, and we have a very fun show this week as we continue our, what was the clever name I came up for the Indy, or someone else came up with for the Indy? Those were, Rob, Mike, anyone remember the clever name someone came up with for this series?
Yeah, Browser Brody came up with the good old Indy days, right? Isn't that something along the lines? The Indy good old days.
Indy good old days. Yeah. It's a play on words, everyone. It's really clever. And that was Michael from the board, Mike Falcone, and he is here on the show with us to talk about early ROH. And of course, we had to bring back the man who I'm sure can talk about early ROH more than anyone, everyone's favorite, Rob Naylor. Rob, how you doing?
Hey, I'm great. I love the name Browser Brody, by the way. I wish I could have that as my screen name.
He's one of the funniest bastards in the world.
That's a great name.
Shout out to Browser Brody, double B. Okay, guys, so early ROH. Basically what we're going to be looking at is ROH from when they opened their doors to when Feinstein left. So that's an early period. All the stuff that went down. I've been watching some old stuff to prepare for this. I think Mike has too. Rob doesn't need to because it's all embedded in his brain. He does not need to refresh any of that. And let's start, guys, by talking about how we came into existence. Mike, go for it.
I was going to say, basically, I was just going to mention, you said we were going to talk when it started, but we can maybe move to a little bit back before when it started, because even though, Ring of Honor started in 2002, it was basically the entire thing was started, in 2001 when you had RF Video coming off of ECW. They were filming a lot more CZW shows, the SATs, and I believe it was the Backstreet Boys. I'm not entirely sure. They had a great match at Stretch in Smyrna. And I remember, the next day, or actually, not wasn't the next day, but, the next week, they were just pimping it. It's this is, the future of wrestling. This is going to be the greatest wrestling in the world. And then, soon after, they had, the Super 8 with Danielson and Low Key. And then soon after, you had, NWA Wild Side down south with this guy named AJ Styles just really tearing it up down there. And basically, our video on their website used to have, a daily news update. And I just remember one day they started talking about, we're going to have a wrestling promotion, and they kind of already had, that built-in credibility, because they were, our video, you can say whatever you want about them, but they were the guys, who were at every ECW show. People knew who they were, and it was just something, all right, these guys are going to start this indie promotion, and now they're going to be bringing in all these great guys everyone's been talking about for the past year into, one, I don't want to say, super fed, but, in a way where it became a little bit more prominent than kind of the feds that were around. And Rob, I think you kind of said you wanted to get into that a little bit more too.
Yeah, you totally laid the foundation for what I'm about to say, because you're right. I'll call it a super fed. It fucking was, because at the time, like you said, we're watching CZW, and you got the Backstreet Boys, and you got the Briscoes, and you got Red and the SATs, and you got all these wrestlers, and then, you have in New York, you have Low Key, you have Red, and you have the Hit Squad, and you have, Eddie Guerrero wrestler for IWC in New York, and then in Wildside, like you said, you got AJ Styles, David Young, all these other people. And Jersey All-Pro had all these young, high-flying wrestlers as well, so it's holy shit. Someone finally who goes around taping all this shit. Oh, and we forgot, Shawn Michaels guy, Spanky, American Dragon.
I was going to say, I knew I was forgetting something,
Biohazard.
Yeah. So someone, there you go. So someone finally had the foresight to say, you know what, fuck it. We need to just bring all these people together from the Pangea of indie wrestling and just call it Ring of Honor. And I remember, this is a funny way before Ring of Honor story. I was at an ECW show in Pittsburgh in 2000 at the David L. Lawrence Center. Love that name. But aside from Pierre Carl Ouellette running in the ring and beating the shit out of H.C. Loke, an awesome squad.
Yeah, was that the Just Incredible match, right?
Just Incredible match happened like 2 weeks afterwards, but they debuted him as the Pirate, running down the ring and beating the shit out of this referee H.C. Lowe, who later became the Carnage Crew, also from the first Ring of Honor show. But I remember talking to Doug Gentry at that show, and he's like, yeah, we just got back from Texas. I'm like, yeah, well, how's that? And he's like, you need to buy this tape right here. And he's like, it's got this guy, Bryan Danielson, and this guy named Spanky, who's going to be like the next Jushin Liger of high flying. I'm like, oh my God, that's crazy. So I'm like, I'm going to buy that immediately. So Lance Jade was there, and boy, was Katie, and I was like, oh, that sounds awesome. So I didn't buy it that day, unfortunately, but I started following those days, so that they were on the show too. And much like Mike said, I remember buying our videotapes, and like, I would get like the Jersey All-Pro tape, and at the end they'd be like, of course I had the techno music involved, so they had the techno music, and it would be like all my favorite wrestlers beating the shit out of other wrestlers to techno music, like Red, Briscoes, SATs, American Dragon, Spanky, and Hit Squad. I was like, holy fuck, I can't wait till that day that we all will never forget, 2/23/2002, and I was like, fuck. Because another thing that we got to bring up is the first Ring of Honor show. To really stand out, aside from doing Super Crazy Eddie Guerrero, which was a great idea, so all the indie buzz on 2001 was basically
and American Dragon. Yeah.
And Low-Key and Daniels had a couple really good matches. So I was like, fuck, well, they could have just done either one of those singles, and they're like, no, fuck that. We'll put all three of these motherfuckers in a match. And at the time, people weren't too smart for their own good and bitching about three-way dances. I love them. I wish there were more of them. So they did a three-way dance with three of the hottest wrestlers of 2001 on the first show. They put it on last, which was awesome because they completely overshadowed the Eddie Guerrero Super Crazy match. It was a good match, too. But, like, it was the match that everyone at least knew the people. And to show how things were, at the time, they only drew, like, 250 to 300 people to Murphy Rack, which would be, like, a disastrous crowd now, or maybe 400. Like, I mean, it wasn't a sparse crowd by any means, but, like, at the same time, that building was only so big that you probably couldn't even get 500 people into it. So it's like, now when someone draws that much, everyone's like putting on black armbands and like crying. But like at the time, that was considered awesome, and they were slowly building toward other stuff. But yeah, I ran it there, but like there was just so much good shit going on. You Red and Jay Briscoe was on that first show, and that's like my favorite match on the first show. The most psychologically devoid match you'll ever find, but like, fuck it. It had one of the best Jay thrillers. The best Jay thriller in the history of his business was in that match. I was like, fuck.
What about? I'm jumping ahead here, but in my rewatching of stuff, I saw a Jay Briscoe Red match from like a couple of months later, and the finish of that match is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Red had just hit the Code Red off the second rope, and then Jay kicked out. So Red was all like, "Oh, what am I going to do to beat him?" And he goes for like a regular Code Red just in the ring. And like when he goes on the up part of it, Jay swings Red forward with his momentum, so he lands like on the back of his head. It was sick. And then Jay like straight away picks him up, gives him like a Kobashi powerbomb, just full force, sick. Picks him straight up after that and gives him what I would say is the greatest straight driller I've ever seen. So I need to go back and watch the first match to see if it was better. But holy shit, that was just one
I remember that now. I have not thought of that since it happened, but you're right. That was on the show, I think, with Paul London and Michael Shane had the ladder match on that show, I think. Could be wrong. But
so let's take a... Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
I know, I was just going to say, like, Rob was just bringing up that amazing Red Jay Briscoe match, like that kind of... Well, actually, like, the Hit Squad started out with the Christopher Street connection, I guess, because they were... they kind of did, like, a little thing in the beginning of that first show, but... They kind of based, like, that first match, like, around, like, this isn't, Mr. Ooh La La versus the Japanese pool boy. Like, we're going to throw in, Amazing Red versus Jay Briscoe opening up our shows and, like, having, like, these awesome matches as opposed to, the match I just said or, just, like, these, stuff that really wasn't seen at the time. Like, and it really, did show, like, a little, high caliber of wrestling, on these tapes. So it was
That's awesome. A really good point because every indie show I'd go to would have one super badass match. And then it would be like the Finn Twins, or it would be Chef DZ Gillespie. No offense, I met the man this year, real nice guy. But like, I didn't want to see Chef DZ Gillespie on the low-key Monster Mac undercard. I wanted to see all the good shit all in one show. Like, I didn't want to see Boogaloo Brown or fucking Magic. No offense, met Magic this year too. I'm burying everyone I met. But like, I didn't want to see Magic. I wanted to see like Insane Dragon and Deranged. So like, every Fed had this bullshit card.
Thank God for Wes Hatch, man.
Yeah. And like, this was like, here you go, motherfuckers. Everything. And like, I guess it was always said that because Christopher Street's connection getting destroyed in the first show was to show what's wrong with wrestling because there's storylines and entertainment. We're not that. So they have,
we don't, Rob, never,
like, fucking gay shit. And then they have the Hit Squad kill these two flaming dudes, and it's like, what the fuck? And then like, I guess they were still on the next show, so I don't really know what the purpose was, aside from that symbolism. But then, like,
they wanted to show
really
that they wanted to show that we don't imitate, we innovate. That was
that slogan is amazing. But I remember they were so like against angles and storylines, and like finally, sometime in 2003, they started doing storylines. And, like, maybe even earlier than that, but I always remember when I'd argue with people, because that's what we did as fans back in the day. We just argued with the other fans about indie wrestling. I'd always fucking have to argue that, yes, they do storylines, you know, but I always remember those original words that Gabe or Rob or whoever said, like, we're not going to insult you with stories and angles. So then it was always like, no, it's not all, like, whack-ass shit with no stories. They're like,
Rob, I cannot believe how much of that kind of stuff they crammed into the commentary on what I've gone back and watching. I didn't even really notice at the time how much there was. Well, I did, but every time they said something like that, I was like 17-year-old Alan was like, oh, cool, no storyline, no gay storylines. This is awesome. These guys are just technical wrestlers. This is what it's all about. Pure handshakes. This is real wrestling, man. Yeah. And then like there'd be like they always said stuff like none of that old school Southern crap.
Yeah,
Gabe loved that line, but
the commentary was so fucking terrifying.
Alan, if I
it
could
was
just
so bad.
Go ahead, Mike.
I was gonna say, Alan, if I could just jump in real quick before like you get going here. I just want to ask Rob a question real quick because we're gonna be talking about Gabe and we're gonna be talking about Rob a lot. But another guy I really wanted to bring up too that we really can't do a show about these early days of Ring of Honor without is Doug Gentry, and I think who has sadly since passed away. So Rob, I think you kind of maybe know more about what Doug was doing in the early days of ROH. So
like he was a real smart guy. He obviously was the guy that would do a lot of the shoot interviews, and he was always around Rob and always around all the wrestlers in ECW, like when they brought Dusty in and all those other guys. And he loves, like, Puerto Rican wrestling, and he loved lucha and Japanese stuff. Like, he had, like, a memory for that stuff, as far as I could decipher. So, like, I mean, he was the reason Super Crazy was in ECW, and Tajiri was in ECW, and the whole Headhunter, well, not the Headhunters. The Headhunters were in, like, 1993 ECW. Mm-hmm. But, like, there was that whole IWA connection. So, like, there was all these young wrestlers coming in, fresh talent, you know what I mean? Like, I watched November 98 the other day. I don't know why, but I did. But I watched it. Fuck, ECW was real. Old Herman? Fuck off. Like, I'm like, what the fuck was Paulie?
I hated that show.
Yeah, and Maybell was there, and the arena had shitty lighting, like it was a DG USA Chicago pay-per-view, and I was like, what is going on?
The fucking Congress. The Congress Theater. Wasn't that what that place is called?
Yeah,
I hate that
the Congress Theater.
Go to the fucking, what's the place called that ROH have always gone to? No, the Frontier Fieldhouse. I love that building.
Yeah.
That's like my favorite indie venue that never gets talked about.
This was the UNO Coliseum in New Orleans. I only remember that because I remember I bought a tape in 1998 of the Limp Bizkit, Orgy, Korn, Ice Cube, and Rammstein concert. And I was like, man, the lighting's way cooler on this rock concert. But no, the lighting sucked. But like, what I was getting at here was obviously Doug brought in all these young, new talent, a lot of fresh talent that Paulie would not have had the time to watch. So that was really cool. So, yeah, he was an integral part. He did come up with Special K from what I've heard. So he was definitely a big part of the early Ring of Honor stuff. But the commentary sucked. He was on commentary. Shit. He was on commentary.
He was... Let me talk about the commentary for a second, because...
Let me first. I gotta get this out. They were all fucking terrifying, including Doug. No, rest in peace. But he wasn't good. Gabe was never fucking good at commentary.
You're jumping ahead, though. You're jumping ahead, though, because the original commentators were Steve Corino and Donnie B. Donnie B, for anyone that doesn't know, is Nova's brother. Okay, and I guess he was a manager and stuff on the Indies. You guys might know a bit more, but anyway, him and Steve Corino were the commentators. And honestly, on like the first 3 shows I went back and watched, they were so horrific that when Gabe and Doug, and then also this guy, Jeff Foreman, I think was his name.
No, I am the reason. I will get into this. I'm the reason that guy got his job. Go ahead.
He was brilliant. It was when Gabe and Doug and him started on the shows, it was like just like, this is me just this week. When they started commentating, I was like, oh my god, they seemed like the best commentators in the world. They seemed like Gorilla Monsoon, Bobby Heenan, Mike Tenay in his prime, Gordon Soley, compared to the likes of Donnie B and Steve Corino, who were talking at a mile a minute. So fast. They were talking so fast that they would kind of just stop because they couldn't realize they couldn't remember where they were going with their sentence, and it would just go to dead air, and then they'd just say whatever the first words that came into their head were, and it made no sense whatsoever. It's comedy gold. Carino, like, I couldn't believe, like, this was Steve Corino I was listening to be this shitty, and Donnie B was even worse. He was so bad, and you'd get...
Yeah, well, Chris Lovey and Ray Murrow were not very good at commentary.
No, they weren't. They were...
I remember at the time, everyone was bitching, because that's what everyone does. They bitch and moan about everything. And I would read the boards, and I would email Gabe and tell him what's going on, and what wrestlers I saw that looked really good, or feedback or stuff. I was like his person that would talk about feedback. So I was like, bro, everyone's bitching about the commentary. It ain't gonna stop, because guess what? I don't think it's very good. So I'm like, I watched this show, International Wrestling Cartel, IWC in Pittsburgh, and they had a guy commentating the first Super Indie tournament, which I actually did commentary for this year, plug. The first guy ever to do the commentary was Jeff Gorman. And he kind of had a nasally, whiny voice, and he also did shows in FWA in Pennsylvania, which actually predated Ring of Honor. It's kind of like a super indie fed that Mike Burns ran. But he did commentary for them, and he'd be like, Yuji Gatami, and he'd call maneuvers that I didn't even know the names of. So I'm like, wow, he's a good commentator. They should bring him in, because this is wrestling, and he's a wrestling commentator who talks about wrestling moves. But kind of nasally, but whatever. We all have our problems. People probably don't like the sound of my fucking voice. So, like, he did the commentary with Gabe for, I believe, the show where Low-Key wrestled Samoa Joe. That show, November something 2002. So he did that show, and he did maybe a show or two afterwards, and then he got dumped for whatever reason. But it just seemed that the biggest albatross, around Ring of Honor's neck, was the god-awful commentary until Prazak came in. I thought Prazak changed the game, and Punk and Gabe were really good.
Yeah, Punk was the first guy to come in and be like, okay, this guy's really good. And I guess he doesn't really fit into the time span, but he kind of does. What's his name? From Florida. Talked about policemen.
Mark Nolte. Oh, my God.
Oh, man, that guy was fucking terrible.
Okay, don't kill me, and I think I may be the only person on the internet, but back when I was, or the DVDs and videos of that time, I loved Mark Nolte. He was like, I was listening, and I was like, oh my god, this guy, he's such a wealth of knowledge. I never knew about policemen before. Oh, tell me more about Dory Funk Jr. I was just feeling like I was sitting under the learning tree, and he'd be like, he always like was calling like those. I remember he called like the Danielson Joe match and the Punk Joe matches. I think he called a few of them. So these really long matches, and the whole time he was just like really kind of coming up with a story, and a real old school story in his own head that maybe not even what the wrestlers were trying to tell, but he was making it up as the story of the match. And at the time, I was so thinking that was the greatest thing ever. Whenever gone back and watched any stuff from that period, I've been like, oh god, Mark Nolte, not that great. But at the time, I loved it.
I liked him too at the time. I liked him a lot. Like, I thought his call of Punk Joe won the hour match was really good. I thought that he lended, like you said, an air of knowledge about being around wrestling. He could call long matches real well and get stories over. But his voice was kind of annoying to listen to. And like, it was a fucking disaster. Like, and I don't know, he called Colt Cabana, which had Punk literally shot on him on commentary and called him an idiot for not knowing Colt's name. I was just like, oh, Christ.
I liked the, when on the Gabe, the Chris Lovey Rey Amuro shows, Gabe was a big mark for coming up with, like, trying to sound smart by saying, like, a Japanese move name and stuff, and a lot of the time he'd get them wrong. My favorite of which that I saw just now was, he goes, oh, I think that's a urinage right there, a urinage suplex. I was like,
Kuna Karana and urinage.
And in the low-key Joe match, which I definitely want to talk about in a bit, he kept on going, oh, UFC style submission right there. Just real cringy stuff. But let's we were talking about the first show there, and we talked about what was on it, and I'd just like to get your guys' thoughts since you were around at the time. And I didn't see that first show for like a year after it happened, but when it did happen, coming out of that, what were your guys' thoughts on this promotion? Did you think like this was going to be? Was the first show a really encouraging thing for you, and you saw real big things for the promotion? I guess Mike start off, and then Rob, and I'm actually going to run to the bathroom, and I'll let you guys talk about it.
Awesome.
Go ahead, Mike. No, I thought, I'm sure I probably thought something very similar to what you thought. I mean, like, you know, coming out, like, instead of just having, like, that one ECWA Low-Key versus Dragon match, like, in an undercard of crap, you know, you kind of had that plus, you know, a great undercard. And not only did you have that, you finally had, like, all these guys that are a video, and, like, we're talking about for so long, and you finally had, like, a platform to see them, you know, like, in its, you know, promotion, like Spanky, for example. I remember, like, he would just have, like, a picture of Spanky, and I remember them saying, if you remember Rob at the time, like, Spanky was even more heavily praised than Danielson was. Like, they were saying Spanky was supposed to be, like, the big guy. He's, like, the next Shawn Michaels and all that. So I thought it was real cool to see, and I also thought it was pretty funny, too, like, and it's something that you noticed is, everyone kind of had, like, new outfits, like, whenever, like, they wrestled for ROH. like the SAT, like, had, like, these, like, really, like, flashy colors and stuff like that, as opposed to, like, their old, like, Junkman outfits that they used to wear. Yeah, remember the Garbage Man outfits they used to wear back in the day? But I thought that shit was great, and, I mean, even, like, those first couple months really, like, you know, they really gave me good promise to, you know, what I thought the promotion was.
Yeah, I don't know if it holds up as well, but I remember the first show being, like, the greatest thing ever when I got it, and I remember, like, I'm sure it doesn't hold up. I'm sure the Black Nature Boy, Scoot Andrews against Xavier isn't very good, but at the time I'd probably give it 3.5 Blakes, and, like, I remember, like, loving the whole show, and I remember Carino saying, this is the greatest show of all time, and I was like, oh, I agree with you, and, like, no, not really. And then, like, the only thing that missed on the first show that I actively remember was the SAT match with Brian XL and Red or Brian. It was like a 3-way match with all the SAT people. And, like, I just remember seeing them rocking on every other show they did. And for whatever reason, everybody was really off that match. I remember thinking, this could have been the best show of all time if only the SAT had their normal match.
That was
and then, like,
that
was the beginning, the end for them. Yeah, like, they're very inconsistent. So it's like,
because remember, like, the first year anniversary show, I guess this kind of falls, like, two in the time.
The shitty Scrabble match?
Yeah, like, that was, I remember, like, if you look on paper, and here, let me go and I'll just read you who was in this match, and if you go back and think, like, at the time, like, if it worked out as good as it looked, like, it could have been, like, the greatest match of all time. It could have been like that Michinoku Pro match from, like, 1997 that people still talk about. It was Divine Storm, the SAT, the Hit Squad, and Mikey Whipwreck against Special K, which consisted of Angel Dust, who I'm not really sure who that was. Yeah, Hydro, who was Jay Lethal, Izzy, Dixie, Slim J from Wildside, Deranged, Slugga, Yayo, Brian Excel, and Jody Fleisch. So, I mean, like, that would have been like...
I forgot Jody was in Special K.
Yeah, remember Jody Fleisch was in, he took, like, the pill and he went all bonkers and
yeah,
stuff.
I just, the last thing I watched before we started recording was Joey Matthews, passing out in the locker.
We'll see. Like, I'm basically going to be jumping around here, but I guess I'm going to try to, Alan, to fit it, like, on this time frame. Do you remember the low-key hit squad match against Special K when they gave, like, low-key, like, a pill and apparently, like, low-key, like, it was...
That show, I actually do want to talk about that show in detail, so we'll get to that later.
Real quick, though, with the whole SAT thing, that match was supposed to be like the match they had in Connecticut in, I believe, November 2002 or October 2002, which was it was like Deranged Slim J. Deranged and Slim J's debut was this show. Deranged Slim J, Joey Matthews, Dixie and Izzy against like the SATs and some other people. But like that match, in my opinion, still holds up. That was an incredible match. I wish I was there live. I remember being at Final Battle 2002, and a fan in front of me was like, "Yeah, you should have seen that Connecticut show." I just remember to this day feeling such sadness that I didn't get to see the Connecticut show live. Because I was like, man,
it was Boston. Yeah, it's the scramble, the first big scramble that they had.
Yeah,
like all the scrambles were awesome. Every scramble from that first 2002 was awesome. I thought, except that first SAT thing on the first show, but I'm not sure that was even supposed to be a scramble. But like, I thought all the scrambles were fun. I think they all kind of hold up because like there wasn't many missed spots in them at all, and all the spots that were hit looked really cool. I thought Deranged was fucking incredible. Izzy was goddamn great. Like. That whole crew was fantastic. I remember they put Homicide in a couple of the scrambles. He's fucking cop-killing people, and it's just, like, very fresh. Like, I really liked it. Although Boogaloo and Homicide was not a bad thing. On the first tape, everyone pull it out and watch it. Best promo of all time where Homicide's like, he's in, like, the hood, and Boogaloo's with him, and they're walking. He's like, hello, a Homicide, and this is my friend Boogaloo. And he's like, look at, this is our neighborhood. And he's like, this is my rubber chicken. And he just inexplicably pulled out a fucking rubber chicken, which was like their gimmick for the first year for whatever reason. That he beat people.
And they had the badass Halloween masks.
Yeah, badass. So they wore these dumbass masks.
They were not dumbass. They were awesome.
Homicide's like, I have to wear this. So he wore these stupid ass masks for like the first 6 months before finally somebody was like, no, get rid of that shit. I remember being disappointed at Homicide, because Homicide was the fucking shit. Like, him in Jersey All-Pro and in IWC and all the New York feds, he was like the guy. And in Ring of Honor, it was like him and Boogaloo. And it was like, well, he's not really going to stand out too much here until, like, they did the Road to the Title tournament. That summer they had a match with the Carnage crew that was fucking incredible.
That's what I wanted to get to next. The road to the next step for ROH after having their first couple of shows was to crown a champion. And that took place over the course of 2 shows. You had Road to the Title and Crowning the Champion. And Road to the Title was basically a tournament day. For whatever reason, they were promoting it as 4 tournaments in one, which was just goofy to me. But anyway, this was actually the first ROH show I saw. This was the first video I got from them. All the names I'd been hearing about and reading cool things about were all on the show in cool matches. AJ, Jerry Lynn, Loki, Red, Danielson, Doug Williams, etc., etc. And so, yeah, this is the first show I saw, and I loved it. I think there's so many great matches on this show. Loki against Red, which is that sequence, which is one of the greatest sequences in wrestling history, and just the match as a whole definitely holds up. And you've got the Jody Fleisch Johnny Storm match, like basically just doing what they do, which is what at the time was awesome. And Jody Fleisch and Spanky had a really quick but really good match, and lots of other good stuff on that show. I think it was a great showcase of all those guys, and it was the first show to really kind of turn the heat up on the Low-Key versus Prophecy feud. I think the show closed with Low-Key refusing to let go of a Dragon Clutch on Daniels. And I really liked that. And coming out of that, we had the 4 winners of the 4 tournaments were Doug Williams, Spanky, Daniels, and Loki. So they were going to go on to the 4-way and creating a champion. But before we talk about that, was there anything on that road to the title show you guys wanted to mention?
Rob?
Yes. I will talk for days. I was there live. That was the first Ring of Honor show I ever went to live.
Really?
Believe that or not. Yeah, that
you went to live was the first one I saw.
I didn't like to drive to Philly at the time, so like I'd have to get my best friend or like a friend of mine from college to drive me to Philly. I'm a fucking pussy that thought I'd get killed or something if I went to the fucking area of Philadelphia. So like I had my friend drive me to this show, 6/22/02. I remember these fucking dates, like fucking Rain Man or something. But yeah, I remember that. I remember we went. It was hot as fucking balls there. The opener was Spanky against Paul London. And Paul London had broken.
No, the opener was Danielson and Biohazard.
Okay, well, the second match on the show, I think,
you
was
conveniently ignored that horrible match. Well, it wasn't horrible.
Yeah, it was awful. So, like, Spanky and Paul London was so fucking good. That was the first time I remember thinking, wow, this Paul London guy, he could be somebody. And it's funny now, they're, like, best buds, pun intended. So, like, they had that match. It was really good. And then I remember Xavier against Red, which I thought was going to be like the greatest thing ever. They did the Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio moonsault DDT spot. I loved that. That match did not really live up to expectations, but it was still pretty good. I remember thinking Xavier was definitely going to win because I knew he was in the low-key bracket, and I figured they'd do low-key Xavier, which is like the reason the promotion was made, but I was wrong. And then Red beat somebody who's slipping my mind. Oh, no, yeah, I said it, Xavier. Jesus Christ, look some more. So anyway, Low-Key knocked out Prince Nana. We thought that was a shoot. And then, like, obviously, like you said, live Red versus Low-Key's open was fucking ridiculous. And what else did they have in that show? I remember, like, Daniels and AJ were in it. Or Jerry Lynn and Daniels. And it was
AJ against Jerry Lynn and Daniels against Scoot Andrews and then AJ against Daniels.
Okay,
yeah, basically,
I remember the Daniels matches being interesting and the Jerry Lynn and AJ thing. They all kind of run together a little bit. Now, who did Doug Williams wrestle?
Doug Williams beat
Danielson.
Danielson, and in his first round, he beat Jay Briscoe. Good man, Mike.
I'm looking at him right now.
Yeah. Well, they should have done Jody. They should have done Jody and Doug, which was a ridiculously awesome match at the King of England tournament. I don't know if anyone has this on DVD, but if you do, get it to me because I want it on Naylor Comp. But, like, I have it on tape, a shitty version of it. But Jody Fleisch and Doug Williams for the King of England tournament, which also has Doug Williams against Eddie Guerrero on it from 2001. It's insane. But everybody did Jody and Johnny. PWF and, Pottstown did it, and Combat Zone did it, and they did it best, by the way. But then when they got to Ring of Honor, they just kind of sucked. And then I remember someone told me that Simi Sakai, Jody and Johnny and somebody else were coming down from Boston for the show that day, and there was a crazy traffic jam. So I think they just got there at bell time or prior to their match, so they didn't have time to work stuff out like usual. And I think everything was just off because they didn't get to try the ring out and stuff. So that was one of the reasons I think that match kind of didn't bomb, but it just wasn't what it needed to be, I don't think.
Yeah.
Plus,
Jody
plus
and
the best match, I thought. I'm sorry for talking over. So plus the best match, I thought was like unbelievable. I mean that match, like if you go back and rewatch it, it still holds up well. So like you compare that to, this ROH match. I mean it's like night and day, and I think that kind of like left like a sour taste in people's mouths a little bit. So.
I actually like them both. I'd probably have to rewatch them both closer together.
Yeah.
I remember. I think it was probably because I watched the Road to Title match first. I probably didn't see the CZW match for a year or two later, so the Road to Title match was a bit closer to my heart. But Mike, was there anything else you wanted to mention on that show?
Oh no, not really. I mean, I remember like everyone at the time going crazy for like that low key,
Red.
Amazing Red.
Brian Alvarez actually, and a lot of people might not expect this considering kind of the style of match. Brian, I think, gave that like 4.5 or 4 3/4 stars in his newsletter at the time. It's up in the archive. Brian did a review of that whole show, and he loved that match. But anyway,
a newsletter in 2002. When did his newsletter come out? I'm sorry I plead ignorance, but when did his newsletter start coming out?
1995.
Jesus Christ, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. You know what newsletter I've been reading? Not to be a shitter, like shit on stuff here. The Wrestling Flyer by John Clark. You guys, it might predate you a little bit, but it was like 90 to 93. He would do like written shoot interviews with like Missy Hyatt and Paulie Dangerously and Sid and like people that are dead now too, like Earthquake and fucking Sherry, and like they're really good interviews. Like in one of them from 1992 or 93, Paulie fucking literally says, wrestling's got to change. Something has to happen, and something will just change the entire business. A certain style, which ended up being like hardcore. Do you
have them on hard copy or soft copy?
My friend let me borrow them while I was in Shamokin last week, so I have them all hard copy style right now. They're unbelievable. Like,
is that the John Clark from NBC in Philadelphia?
It fucking is. Gabe told me that. Okay. Gabe's like, yeah, he works for NBC now. I'm like, what? That's what I thought. Yeah. Same guy. Yeah, so he's a really good newsletter.
Yeah, he's like one of like the main sportcasters in Philadelphia. Like he's like on like the NBC. Like it's just too bad. Like, you know, you wonder if he'd have any pull to like get any Dragon Gate thing publicity, but you know, whatever.
What you think of that hot TV presenter girl that Chikara are using recently? I love me some of her. But anyway,
I don't even know that. The thing about real quick on John Clark, we'll close this chapter of the show. It has nothing to do with Ring of Honor, but regardless, what was I going to say about John Clark? He had an interview with Sabu from like 1993.
Wow.
And at the end of the interview, Sabu goes, yeah, you know what? I'm going to stop doing these interviews. I've said a little bit too much over the last couple of years. I'm going to start being like my Uncle the Sheik. And from that point on, it ruined Sabu for everybody for like a decade and a half when he didn't speak to anybody. But like, he talked about getting shot in the face, which is a story I've never heard about. Like, someone shot him in the face, and like, he lost a tooth and shit. Like, I was like, what the fuck? But anyway, I'm sorry for taking on the U-turn there.
No worries at all. So, the road to the title, as I mentioned, there's the four guys. They went on, had that hour Iron Man match, which Low-Key won, and the thing I remember, I think it was a good match. I can't really remember exactly. I didn't rewatch it. I didn't feel like rewatching an hour-long match, but the thing I really remember about it was that at the end of the match, it was so hot in there, like the middle of July in this little sweat box. Low-Key was like literally dead on his feet after wrestling for an hour in that place, and I remember he cut a promo dedicating it to Russ Haas, who had died, I guess, a year or two before. And the show as a whole, there wasn't too much else on the show that was like particularly great. I remember AJ Styles having a three-way for the TNA X title with illuminous names of Adam Jacobs and David Young.
All that Adam Jacobs, man.
Yes, he's all that. Adam Jacobs.
And David...
former Jeff G. Bailey, NWA Elite guy, stablemate. But no, they still had the bunkhouse match, Alan. It was really good. The Natural Born Sinners and the Carnage Crew. That was like one of the main...
that was the match I said earlier. It's fucking awesome. I agree with that. That's the notorious match, the four-way, where Low-Key, Meltzer's paper said Low-Key lost 10 pounds in that match.
Jeez.
I don't know if you could lose 10 pounds of water weight, but fucking, I believe Meltzer's paper. So I was like, holy shit,
it wouldn't shock me. Like, he was, it wouldn't shock me, but,
we haven't said this yet, too, but I'm gonna go on record. Fuck it all, I'm saying it. Nobody ever on the Indies, because I'm so hyperbolic, nobody ever on the Indies had a run like Low-Key, from Low-Key Xavier in ICW in June of 2001 to Low-Key losing the belt to Xavier in, September.
And even, you can extend that to October, because the Joe match was in October.
Dude, Low-Key was the fucking shit. Like, without him, I probably wouldn't even have followed it nearly as closely.
Oh,
you look at his matches with fucking the three-way match, the Danielson singles, the AJ match in April 2002, the Red match. You had the four-way hour draw, which was well received by everybody. The AJ Styles sleeper match in Boston.
The AJ Styles match.
Oh, that match was awesome.
Unbelievably good, right?
Match. Yeah, that was like Low-Key's first title match that he had.
Yep. They did the AJ match and the
Briscoe versus Jay.
Yeah.
I thought that was better than the season. I thought that was the best Briscoe match that they had. I know Tom said they had a great match in NWA Wildside, but unfortunately I haven't seen that in so long. I thought the Honor Invades Boston match with Mark versus Jay was the best match.
Yeah, that was crazy.
And when they had like they debuted like new outfits at that show.
Yeah, they did.
They did. I remember this.
They looked
I gotta say, go ahead. No, you go first, Alan. I swear, you go.
Better than their really horrible generic red and black outfits they had before, but still, they were still such kind of kids. Like they just still looked like kids so much that it was goofy as fuck seeing them in wrestling gear. And the Briscoes became like a million times cooler to me when they came back and they had the shorts. had lost that shit because it looked horrible.
Mark J in Boston was really good and had better psychology, but Tom's right. The Wild Side match, if only they had better miking or audio, because it always seemed like Wild Side, like the crowd was dead, but that Briscoe match from Wild Side is so much fun. They literally did everything under the sun and perfectly executed everything under the sun. It's unbelievably good match. So I advise people to watch both the Boston Ring of Honor show from 2002 with Briscoe, Wild Side match. I don't know what the day was.
To get back to Low-Ki, I have a quick question. Do you guys think Low-Ki back then, because to me, like, Low-Ki back then, like, smokes Low-Ki at any other point in his career. Like, I think he was so much more fun back when he was quote-unquote inexperienced. And
I wouldn't agree with that. I think Low-Ki's been the man his whole career. I just think he had such a better platform to be Low-Ki at that point, to have those main event matches and to carry a promotion.
I guess the match with Davey was awesome at PWG. So
I heard Steen and Hero was better. No, not playing favorites. I'm just saying. I legit heard that it was.
Who'd you hear that from, Rob?
I'm not gonna say. I cannot say.
Yeah.
But I heard it was better. Numerous sources, but like it's unbelievable. But like I'll just say this: he is key. He's difficult. He probably won't ever be back anywhere. Who the fuck knows if anyone will be able to afford him now? It's a shame. He's key, but he is so fucking unbelievably driven, and he wrestles at such a high rate. But the thing is, for anyone to make him the centerpiece of their promotion, they've got to deal with his being himself. I'm going to do it as nice as I can. But at the time he was coming up, he didn't have too big of an ego, so he was just like motivated. Have the main event, steal the show, have the main event, steal the show. Then when he lost the belt, he still had some high levels of performance, but it's always just been he could never get pushed to the very top because people don't trust him to lose or whatever. But he is as fucking good as it ever gets. Like, I still to this day think he's like top 5 wrestler in the world. And you don't even want to know my reaction when they announced him and Devitt. When I found out about that last Wednesday or Thursday, Jesus Christ. And then I looked online, I expected everyone else to be fucking losing their shit, and the reaction was nowhere near what mine was. But like, that's gonna be the fucking shit. Like, who could say anything bad about that match?
Yeah, that's gonna be nuts. And I know
if Alan had a promotion, that'd be the match we'd book. I would.
I know Devitt used to watch a lot of Low-Ki stuff back when he was like in Ireland, and so I'd say he'll be looking forward to that match. And they probably were on opposite sides of tags and stuff when Low-Ki was in his last New Japan stint. And I can tell you that a funny story. Prince Devitt's parents hate Low-Ki. They know him from like going over to visit Devitt in the New Japan tours, and then they'd see him back when they were back here. They'd just turn on the TV and he was like on NXT or whatever, and his mom like just decided she like hates Low-Ki and that darn Low-Ki. And so that's gonna be a fun match. I think I really hope that sort of delivers like it really should. I'm
wondering if he's gonna get mad that he stole the Ghetto Stomp. Like, I love it when Prince Devitt does the Ghetto Stomp and the commentators go, Ghetto Stomp on. I'm like, what the fuck? They're calling it the Ghetto Stomp. But yeah, I don't know. That might be shoot rivalry. I'm excited about it. I have a question. This is what I hate. I saw pictures of the PWG show online. I advise everyone to check them out just for Barry O footage. But like the pictures online of that show, how come Low-Ki is still wearing that whack ass fucking living color lead singer body glove outfit. Like, isn't he smart enough to ditch that shit? Like,
I really like going back and watching this old stuff. I really like his just plain black kick pads and black just shorts. Like that he wore.
Like the boxing short. Yeah.
That looked badass. I think that was a really cool look. And I remember at the time when he switched to that from the red baggy
pants. The hammer pants,
he had the red baggy pants. And he switched out of them. I was bummed because I really liked the red baggy pants. I thought the shorts looked weird. Now I think the shorts were his coolest look he's had. His 0-1 tights with the blue and the yellow and the black just was like the most horrible.
I'm a fan of the long tights, if we're going to play fashion expert here. The long tights, Loki's my favorite. Like, he wrestles in long tights now, which look really cool, but, like, he has, like, that stupid-ass shirt that he wears, but, I like the boxing shorts low-key, too, but it got ruined forever in December 2004. Maybe you'll recall this. Loki was going to wrestle Danielson, and he came out in his boxing shorts and like, yeah, it's me good match. And he's like, it's going to be grappling style. And he pulls his pants off, and he's wearing like his little fucking undies. And I'm like, what the fuck is this?
I remember that. It was his UWFI style shorts.
Dude, it ruined it forever. I was like, what the fuck is... And apparently he did that on his own. Like, he didn't tell, like, Gabe or anybody. It's like, okay... And it just ruined everything. I don't like the boxing shorts.
He was trying to look like Frank Shamrock, but anyway, so Loki became the first champion, and I guess that was a good move. But the belt was on Xavier, and shortly after that, and what did we think of that switch? Was that something did that get a lot of negative feedback online, or what was the deal at the time, Mike?
Of course it did. But I liked it. I defend it. I think it was a good idea. I think Paul London chasing Xavier is one of the best things in early Ring of Honor. I didn't get it at the time. I understand why. But you can only have the champion play unbeatable 5-star match babyface for so long. And Gabe wanted to get like actual heel heat, and he figured he could use Xavier to do it. I think Xavier was absolutely awesome in the ring, even if people didn't always believe that. But like, I'm a giant fan of Xavier. I think Xavier could come back in wrestling now, and he'd be like my 11th favorite wrestler.
Are you a fan of promos?
Yeah, like...
He had the worst promos in the history of wrestling, Rob. They are true.
No, he didn't. You lie. I don't remember any of them, maybe, but like, I liked Xavier. I thought he was awesome.
It was really... There's one promo with the prophecy hired gun Samoa Joe, and as Xavier is talking, the look on Samoa Joe's face in the background is just absolutely perfect. It's so great. But and Simply Luscious, who was equally shitty at promos, she makes some like snide comment to Xavier, and Samoa Joe in the background is just like pointing and laughing at Xavier. It's just brilliant. But so they put the belt on him. They did the weird finish with the slamming the concrete pole thing into his ribs, and I guess that was the big the thing with the prophecy, which we should probably talk a bit about the prophecy here. They were anti everything Ring of Honor stood for. Daniels would always cut the promo where he'd be like, and we're going to tear Ring of Honor down and rebuild it in the image of the prophecy, and then they'd go, okay, cut, and Daniels would be like, was that okay? Was that good? Because it was real Shoga's behind the scenes.
Oh, no.
Just was so cheesy. But anyways.
Which I also probably liked at the time. I'm going to throw myself under the bus here. God knows I'm like the Ring of Honor nut hugger supreme, so I'm sure at the time I was like, I enjoyed the way they did that. I hope they shoot on promo mats and they cut the mats all the time. But I don't know. I liked it. I don't like it now.
I liked it too, but looking back at it now, it's cheesy as hell. But anyway,
it's horrifying.
Daniels led the prophecy, and you had the first member was, I guess, would have been Simply Luscious, and then Donovan Morgan, and then Xavier, and Mark Briscoe briefly, and Joe was like not an official member, as Gabe would always say. He was just their hired goon. They paid him to do certain tasks, and he beat up people and got his money. And it was really funny. In that earlier promo, I was talking about Carino and I think Michael Shane come along, and they're like, "So Joe, Norma Jeans?" And Joe's like, "Yeah, sup?" And they high five, and Joe walks off to them, and Daniels is like, "Hey Joe, what the hell? Come back here, you're with us." And Joe's like, "No, I'm with you when you pay me to beat up a guy. If you want me to be your boyfriend after, you got to pay me more." And so Joe goes off with Carino, so he's not an official Prophecy member. So that's your core Prophecy group, and I kind of like
Joe left the Prophecy to join the group called the Group, which was the worst thing of all time and possibly my most hated thing in Ring of Honor. The fact that they called Steve Carino's group the Group is like, that gets points for all-time levels of what the fuck. Like, really? And I love Gabe, but like, what was he thinking?
W. Anderson. But Simply Luscious turned her back on the Prophecy to join the group, and she got replaced by Allison Danger. Before we get to that, just the early days of the Prophecy and their role in Ring of Honor. Mike, what did you think about that? Did you think it was a good fit? Did you think it was good having them in there to be the kind of contrast, or did you feel it was kind of not a fit?
Well, I mean, I personally thought it was alright. I know, like, it did get, like Rob said, it did get its backlash, but the way that, like, the promotion was set up, like, all these guys just having matches, I mean, it added, like, that, it gave them heels because they refused to shake hands, and, like, part of, you know, Ring of Honor, everyone remembers, you know, the big thing, you know, that really was, you know, stuck out was shaking hands before and after every match and all that stuff. And, like, these guys, because they didn't shake hands and had matches where if you lost, you can't shake hands. You can't shake anybody's
Yeah, Doug
hand.
Williams, take that.
You know what I mean? So I guess, like, it was just, like, their way of trying to establish some sort of a baby face and some sort of heel with Chris Daniels, you know, as this, you know, this dickhead who won't let, you know, people be honorly toward one another, you know. So
it's another thing that looking back on it, like, shaking hands is so fucking stupid, but like I kind of got it at the time, and I still do. Yeah. Like, you've got to have something everyone does. It's a uniform policy to make that one guy that doesn't do it stand out. So I do like that. I will say that my favorite thing ever taken off of the shaking the hands thing was one time there was a Chad Collier match, and he put his hand down his tights and wiped his ass with his hand and then put it out to shake someone's hand. And I thought it was the funniest shit I've ever seen in my life. Like, it was great. But aside from that, I really could do without the shaking hands thing. I think they still shake hands. Like, they don't really point out that they shake hands, I guess, anymore, but
the thing is, like, I remember like watching wrestling, and even like, you know, WWF like in the 90s, and like when people would shake hands after a match, like it was always like that little subtle thing that, you know, people would do, and be like, wow, like they really respect each other after that match. They just had a real hard match, and they moved on. And I guess instead of just making it like that thing you really want to talk about, like they made it like almost the center of the entire promotion in a way with the Code of Honor, you know, so.
Before we move out of 2002, there's one quick thing I want to mention. There's something I'll mention too. If we're no worries. Look, I went over to my friend's house. A few of us were going to watch some wrestling, so I brought one of those DVDs over. It was the Crown Champion DVD, and it's a couple of days ago. And we just skipped around. We watched a few of the matches, and then it went back to the hilariously, like, in 2011, just the hilariously amateur-looking DVD menu. But at the time, I'd say it was probably a pretty snazzy DVD menu. But anyway, for anyone that has this DVD, go to this DVD menu and go into the extras, because there is, without question, the all-time greatest extra in the history of DVDs. And it's something that made us roll around on the floor laughing for about a half an hour last week. It was simply called Pictures of the ROH belt, and it was a slideshow of pictures of the belt on a chair. Here's the belt on a desk. Here's the belt on Rob Feinstein's bed. Here's the belt with a cool lighting on it.
Fuck.
Here's the belt in a car moving, and then the slideshow repeated, and we were fucking kicking the floor laughing at this. It was absolutely brilliant.
I am so mad that I only have the VHS tapes. What the fuck?
This was, I swear to God, like, and the extra was actually titled pictures of the ROH belt. It was amazing.
Wow.
They were putting this on here as a selling point, an extra thing, thing for your money.
It's a real nice belt. Yeah, it's a real nice belt.
Was that with the DV cover, where it was just like the generic red?
The first probably 10 or 12, maybe even more DVDs, but all the early ones I have, they're all just this generic red DVD cover. I'm going to grab one now and say exactly.
Yeah, when they changed the logo, I remember or when they remastered them or whatever and put them on DVD, they changed them.
So we got on the cover, we got a picture of Chris Daniels and Simply Luscious. We got Low-Key in his black shorts. We've got a
Spanky and blue tights, right?
Spanky and blue tights. We've got AJ with a bloody face. And
yeah, I remember that picture of AJ.
At the back, you've got the Spanish Fly. You've got Daniel punching AJ in a bloody face. You've got Homicide and Boogaloo, and you got Paul London. And let's read out the quick blurb here. Check out this acclaimed Ring of Honor event featuring the hardest hitting, highest flying, most athletic action you've ever seen. Say goodbye to sports entertainment, as pure wrestling is back with Ring of Honor. You are about to witness the most skilled fighters battle it out in every different style of professional wrestling, including hardcore, American, Japanese, and lucha libre. Agonizing submissions, vicious kicks, brutal chops, and innovative moves make Ring of Honor the talk of wrestling industry insiders.
Lucha Libre, without the bullshit, remember that.
You will be sure to hit the rewind button again and again to catch all the fast-paced, unbelievable, and devastating maneuvers. See what all the educated, die-hard fans and wrestling critics are with the complete heart of mayhem, heart, courage, respect, and fighting spirit. This is more than just matches, as this tape includes backstage footage, videos, and more. I guess more equals pictures of the belt. This is like a pay-per-view, but in ROH's own creative and unique style. Now it's time to just witness Ring of Honor for yourself. You will never look at wrestling the same way again. Blah, blah, blah. All rights reserved. Visit ROHWrestling.com. So that was every DVD for the first year or so, I'd say, that exact same case. And I
hate to say this, but if they would do that now and the shit would come out faster, I'd be all for it. I don't give a fuck what's on my DVD. Like, I always laugh at these people that get so uptight over DVD covers. Who gives a fuck?
Yeah,
like,
I know, right?
You could have like a black box with the word on the side, like wrestling. I'm like, all right, awesome.
They go.
Who the fuck buys a DVD for a cool cover, a wrestling DVD, mind you?
Up on my
Not this guy.
The DVD goes up myself, and I never look at it again. I just see the sides of the DVDs, because, like, once they're on the shelf, I don't look at them. But Mike, you had something else you wanted to talk about before we move on to 2003.
Oh, no, like, just, like, a few matches, I guess, that were, like, the big, match that got, like, a lot of talk at the time, I guess.
Go for it.
Big match in 2002 where, well, the first one was that unscripted show when Xavier beat Loki. Right after they had that match, or a couple matches after they had that, was the big Paul London versus Michael Shane street fight when Paul London kind of made a name for himself that, people kind of still remember that match today as, like Paul London's maybe breakout match. Like, for a while he was part of the Texas Wrestling Academy. They would drive up all the way from Texas every month and wrestle, and Rudy Boy, and like, he was just, Paul London was like, the guy with like, John, because, like, the thing was, like, with these Texas wrestling guys, like, a lot of them had, like, really bad luck. There was a guy named John Hope who just completely sucked dick, and then there was, like, that Chris Marvel guy who, broke his leg. Like,
Infinity Meter, he just completely sucked dick. Is that how he got into the promotion? Oh, fuck.
That's how Biohazard got in.
Yeah, Biohazard.
I'm just taking random shots at Biohazard at the show.
I just keep seeing, like, John Hope in the ring, and underneath his name completely sucks dick.
And he really didn't, like, you really didn't see much of John Hope ever again after that.
It's going to turn out that Biohazard lives in Dublin now, and he's going to track me down and kill me, and John Hope lives in wherever Mike lives, and he's going to track him down and kill him.
He lives in Conshohocken in Pennsylvania.
Wasn't there a guy named, like, Akaya Koa or Loka or some crazy Hawaiian name, which I know I am not smart enough to pronounce, But I just remember he always came up in the car with them dudes too.
King Curtis Iakea?
There was he was the first guy. It was Spanky and Ikea Loa versus Michael Shane and Oz in like the first match. Yeah,
that guy was a big.
I added like 5 K's to the guy's name. I do remember Ikea Loka.
And then besides that, there was us. Oh, I'm sorry, Al. Go ahead.
Street Fight was awesome. It was London did the shooting star off the ladder, and then I was always kind of thinking that was the match that where he ran up the corner ladder and dove onto Shane in the aisle. But actually, watching back stuff in the last couple of days, that actually happened in a brawl on a later show. But they did some sick stuff in that ladder match, and it was a real star-making performance. It was sort of memorable as the first unscripted. I guess they did a couple more unscripted shows where everything gets changed around, and it was. I think that match was exactly what it needed to be, and did a great job.
There was that, and then there was. I mean, obviously, people know about. I think we had mentioned real quick Low-Ki versus Samoa Joe from the first ever Glory by Honor, which was. It really like blew people's minds at the time for just being like, similar to like that first Dragon Low-Ki match that they had at the second show, but like this Joe Low-Ki match like kind of, paved the way for like all like that kind of a style, like
I don't even think there's it's very rare that I've seen matches that have like quote unquote stiff matches that have come anywhere close to matching that. Not necessarily matching it for stiffness, but just matching it in the style and the way it was done. That's like a unique match that, especially in America, I haven't seen duplicated or replicated even close at all. Maybe a couple times in Japan I've seen certain matches that are kind of like that, and that match itself is probably like matches that happened before from the 90s in Japan, but it's just that when you think kind of stiff wrestling, you think, say, maybe like a Davey Richards match or something like that, like Davey Richards against Roderick or something that you think is a real stiff match. It's not the same thing as what Low-Ki and Joe did here. This was a total different kettle of fish. It was unreal. As I mentioned before, there's a spot where they take off their tape and they take off like their knee pads, and then they just start chucking elbows and knees at each other. It's vicious, and like the finish is just like. Low-Ki is just swinging shots at Joe, and then Joe screams, and then Low-Ki like literally just hits him with like a kind of clip around the back of the head, kind of swinging arm. It wasn't a clothesline or anything. It was just a weird contact, and Joe just drops, and Low-Ki just walks over and pins him. It was like the second it happens, the crowd just popped because they appreciated it, even though it wasn't like a traditional sort of finish. And it was an awesome match, and it was Joe's debut. And talk about a great way to debut in a company and just kind of get yourself over as, okay, this is what this dude's all about right here. And
go ahead,
Rob.
I'm sorry, just real quick, and I'll just let Rob take it. But like, if you remember, this was Joe's debut match because before then he was kind of like that guy from UPW, that Universal Pro Wrestling that Cena later came from and stuff like that. And you kind of, going back to what we had talked about at the beginning of the show, like there was all these guys from all over kind of bringing into like the big Super Indian ROH, and like that's how kind of Joe was. Like this was like Joe's debut, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, but like this was like his debut like in that entire area, and like he just completely, got over huge so much, they gave him the title 6 months later, so.
Yeah, that is true. He was real big in Epic in California too.
Yeah.
'Cause I remember he had a match with American Dragon in Epic, and then he had a match with like him and I think Super Dragon against Danielson and Spanky or some shit. I just remember I really liked Samoa Joe. I thought he was awesome. And then he came in, and I remember him and Low-Ki had that match, which I was there live for. And Insane Clown Potsy's on that show too, which is awesome. But they had that match, and it was all about like, stiff matches. That was stiff. So I came home, went to college. And, like, I bugged the shit out of all my roommates and people in my little place of living. Like, oh, hey, Jeff, come on over. Got Ring of Honor. Like, cool guy, right? When she'd watch this shit with me and, humor me, she'd be like, we'd all make fun of, like, Simply Luscious, because how old she looked, and, like, I remember being like, this match is the stiffest ever, and like, what does that even mean? Like, I remember how they explained what stiff wrestling was to these people. I'm like, come on, Marks. But no, it was absolutely retarded, but, like, looking back on it, I remember watching that match and thinking, like, how great it was. Not only was it good live, it's even better on tape, you know, but it was pretty good. I liked it a lot. That was the same show when Paul Onion ran up the ladder and almost killed himself on the guardrail, which is one of the craziest things still to this day. Like, holy shit, it's fucking nuts. Nuts.
When I was watching that, I was like, how come that ladder, like, when he reached the top of the ladder, why, and he, like, sort of put his footing down and pressed off it. Why did, like, the bottom of the ladder not, like, shoot up into the air? And, like, it would have been something if he flipped off and then the ladder comes flipping behind him and the ladder goes flying into the crowd and wipes out, like, 20 people. That would have been pretty great. But, yeah, was there any other matches you wanted to mention, Mike?
Yeah, I guess just, and then just, like, the final one was, from All-Star Extravaganza match, like, I just actually rewatched right before I came on here, because I wanted to mention real quick, because I loved it at the time, was AJ Styles versus Danielson.
I watched it about an hour ago, too.
Did you? There you go. And if you remember, they also had a great match. They had a couple other great matches as well at Main Event Spectacles, and had another match somewhere as well, too. But, like,
2006. When AJ, I think it was Danielson, one of them held the other in the corner, opened up his mouth, and spat into it.
It was the same show as Low Key versus Jack Evans, I think.
Yeah.
So it was around there. But that was just a match at the time, you know, seeing AJ, who, you know, this was when TNA was kind of kicking off too, and, you know, he had this match with Danielson that, you know, now, you know, here on January 31st, 2011, still holds up today as just an absolutely awesome match. And, you know, you just said you watched it too, Alan?
Yeah, I loved it. It was great. AJ was AJ, for anyone that thinks AJ is like a flyer or just a smooth guy, AJ is one of the greatest, like, wrestlers, as in just, like, wrestling on the mat that I've ever seen. He's so aggressive, and he's just, it's so enthralling watching him just, like, grapple. I don't want to sound gay here, but just watching him grapple with dudes, it's awesome. And,
also from that same show, real quick, so we get this in, Carino Key against Masato Tanaka and Otani is a very underrated match.
I cut off the DVD just before that match started, so I'll have to go back and watch that.
I
remember it was the first time. It was the first time I ever saw boot scrapes, and I was like, "Whoa, that's harsh."
Yeah, I remember thinking, "Man, Nick Gage does it way better. This guy stole it." But yeah, I really liked it, and I thought that was a good ass match. Those guys worked hard. Everyone forgets it. Tanaka and Otani were there, it seems.
Yeah.
I remember Togo came in. Togo and Hidaka were in, like, the month before.
Yeah.
And Togo got hurt.
They did
Hidaka was in October. He wrestled Red at the first Glory by Honor.
What happened was Togo, they did a tag tournament.
Oh, yeah, he was on. That was good.
They did a tag tournament together, and then they were doing a long tour of America, and then at the end of the tour was the next ROH show.
MLW.
They were both going to be on that ROH show, and then it was going to be Hidaka against Red, which did happen. It was going to be Togo against Doug Williams, with the winner going on to face Chris Daniels. But Togo's, I guess he was injured, so they just did Daniels against Doug Williams, and at the end there was big schmoz, and Dick Togo ran in with a crutch and cleaned house. And he celebrated. It was like Dick Togo, Doug Williams, and Jay Briscoe celebrated to end the show.
Holy shit, I don't remember any of that. That's crazy. I remember when Togo broke his leg or hurt his ankle or whatever. Greatest match of all time. MLW, right? It's Togo.
Yes.
Togo, somebody, and somebody. Daniels is involved.
Togo,
like the SAT and Quiet Storm.
SATs and Quiet Storm, yeah. That was a match. I saw you pimping, and I was like, an MLW match. I remember MLW didn't set that many great matches. Let's see what this...
First of all, that building treated Togo like he was Diesel at the Royal Rumble. Second of all, Togo hits the greatest rope walk swinging DDT I've ever seen. It looks like he killed the Maximum.
There was two moves in that match that Togo did. I remember, you wrote a review or something about it, and I saw it, and then I checked it out, and you wrote about the two moves, and they were like the greatest you've ever seen those two moves performed. And I went watched.
Oh my God!
Watched.
Yes.
It was like, yeah, he was right. Those were awesome. One was the swing.
That is my favorite Dick Togo match of all time. Imagine that statement. I've seen Togo against the best wrestlers in the entire world, and my favorite Dick Togo match has his opponents Quiet Storm and the SAT Maximum. I cannot say how awesome that match is. Everyone's got to check it out.
It was the swinging DDT, and then there was another move that was like the best you've ever seen that move done. He was like
I have to look back on it. It could have been anything. But he was on fire.
Which he's got this great punch, but Dick Togo was awesome. It would have been great if he was in Ring of Honor more. It was a shame because I think he would have fit in with a lot of those guys that style. And speaking of Dick Togo, won the DDT, came back from his injury at the weekend, won the DDT belt back. So they're building up to his retirement coming up in a couple of months. So lots of good Dick Togo stuff on the way. And that is 2002 in the books. And let us move on now to 2003. Which kicked off with that anniversary show with the aforementioned triple threat match that had AJ London and Low Key that I loved. My favorite.
Oh, yeah.
It was my, actually I don't think we actually mentioned this earlier.
We mentioned that scramble, but
yeah, I was talking to my friends about this match earlier on today. That was when I was talking about it, and that was my favorite match of all time for a good while until actually. By coincidence, another triple threat match, the Benoit Michaels Triple H match, replaced it. And now, weirdly enough, I hate triple threat matches. And but at the time, I loved that three-way, and it's still.
You hate triple threat matches? I just made fun of people that hate triple threat matches. I'm sorry. I didn't know that.
I remember. I know you said that, and I hate triple threat matches because I think a lot of them are done badly now. But a good triple threat match is awesome. That low-key AJ London match still holds up, and the Mania Benoit still holds up. I think those are amazing, and they're still among my favorite matches ever. But I just think there's a lot of shitty triple threat matches these days. But that aside, there was a good triple threat match on SmackDown last year with Del Rio, Ray, and Edge, which people should check out. But anyway, that triple threat match in ROH was awesome. I loved it. It had it's some crazy spot where one dude hurricaned another dude from the top.
Into a powerbomb. Frankenstein off the second rope into a
it was into
a
steel splash, I think, or something. I can't remember, but it was crazy, and they had loads of crazy spots in that. And I loved that show. CM Punk had just started around this time. He was on that show. And
that guy.
C.W. Anderson. So this was the
terrible debut.
This was
CM Punk's
phase of when he was just a happy-go-lucky babyface, happy to be in Ring of Honor, and happy to prove his worth as a pure wrestler. Which, in hindsight, very familiar to how he started in WWE. But anyway,
he also had a match with C.W. Anderson when he started in WWE as a rematch.
No way. That is crazy. And then he in both feds, he eventually turned on people by preaching his straight edge ways. And do you want to get into Punk and Raven now? I guess we can.
Why not? Sure.
Yeah, so Punk.
Well, you said, Alan, you wanted to talk about that show when Loki did ecstasy during the match or something like that. That was on that March show that kicked off the Raven. That was July. That was Death Before Dishonor. We'll get to that. That was in March. That was March.
No, it was in March, dude.
That kicked off. That was the first Raven.
You're right. Match. You're right. Okay. Well, that wasn't the show I wanted to go into detail on, but we will talk about that. That Loki. Yes, it was a scramble or something. I remember AJ being in a scramble on his own or something like that. But I think it was Expect the Unexpected. It had the first. As you said, it had the first Raven Punk match, and Punk won with some move called the Devil Lock or something, which is kind of shit. But Loki's in a match with Special K, and they tried to get him to take a pill, and he puts it on his tongue, and young innocent Alan, who didn't drink or smoke or do any of those things, was very, very disappointed in Loki, and I was like, oh, Loki, what are you doing? Hanging out with these ravers, taking their pills. And then he spits it out or something, and he beats the shit out of them. And I was like, "Yay, Loki! Yeah, you're still my friend." It was awesome. and it was that was really cool. And yeah, the Punk Raven match was on that. That was their first match against each other, but they'd been cutting promos. I guess just at the end of, maybe it was the show where he wrestled CWN. At the end of the show, Punk is just backstage and he's talking and it's kind of going as normal. And then he starts talking about Raven coming in and how against Raven he is and all the reasons he hates Raven and how Raven's against his drug-free lifestyle. He starts talking about straight edge, which he hadn't really done up to that point. And it was just it was your first glimpse of the CM Punk character. And then Raven,
that was on that Queen show. That was on that show when he from the old ECW building, the House of
Extreme. The anniversary show, which the start of that show, there's an awesome visual of the camera zooming in on a cake with like their 1 year anniversary cake. It was the cheesiest thing ever. But the Punk starts off with a promo. Raven counters with a promo of his own. Raven was pretty hot at this point coming out of WWE. Everyone was really into him. He was a huge favorite on the indies. His shoot interviews came out, which I know I was a big mark.
Oh, yeah.
First Raven shoot interviews. Now I'd rather
Secrets of the Ring.
Now I'd rather claw my fucking eyes out than Raven tell me how everyone should wrestle. What did you guys think of the beginnings of that feud? And did you see good potential in it, Rob?
I liked it. I also got the shoot interview, and then I had to explain to all my friends what a shoot interview was. They're like, what? What kind of interview is that? But no, the shoot interview did come out. I literally did get that Raven shoot interview, like the day I got Joe versus Key on tape, too. But, yeah, I liked it. I thought Punk's interviews were always really good. Raven's interviews were good at the time. And Raven had, like, a buzz about him because he wasn't old and immobile. I remember Punk doing a leg drop off the top rope through a table on Raven. I remember that match had juice. I was like, wow, bleeding and everything. They had a good little run there from, like, March until July or whatever. They had some really shitty matches, too. But, like, I like the feud. I think Punk is right when he says that wasn't the feud that put Punk on the map. He's on the map already. I mean, it helped. But I know Raven always gets all sandy vagina over the fact that Punk never tells people how much Raven helped him, but like he'd have made it regardless. Like,
yes, check out Punk on a show with Rob and my good friend Bix from a year or two ago, where they talk with CM Punk, and I believe he talked about that whole Raven thing in that interview. A really good interview. I'm serious. Check it out on Bix's site, whatever one has the interview. Yes, read his columns. Anyway, back to Punk.
I liked the feud. I thought it was good. I didn't think it was great. I thought Punk had better things with almost nearly everyone else in the promotion afterwards. But it allowed him to get a lot out promo-wise as far as character goes. So I did like it. I'm not going to player hate too much. But Raven, whatever.
Why pick on me? Then I guess the feud really hotted up when, it wasn't really the feud hotting up so much as Punk's character really hotted up when he cuts this promo at the Wrestle Rave show with him, Cabana, and Lucy, Daphne, who, I don't even remember. I remember just seeing her on that promo the first time I saw it, and I was like, she was in Ring of Honor, what the hell? I didn't remember her being around. She wasn't there very long, but, they cut this promo backstage, and it's when Punk just goes crazy about straight edge stuff, and it's seriously intense. And
it was a live promo too, in front of the crowd at the Murphy Rack, and that was just, you're right, he did good promos prior to that, but like, I even remember when I got the tape, bootlegged apparently, I wrote on it, Punk breaks out.
No, he could
like exclamation points.
Oh my God, Rob, I think I have that, one of those shows where I have something equally cheesy. It's like almost the same thing written on my cover of that tape. It's like
that was the fun of having tapes. All these damn kids these days, they're MP4s. And
I used to write loads
in
of
our
stuff
day. Yeah, I put stars on them and shit. I'd be like, 3 and 1/4. Like, I'd write 1/4 really little. I'd try to get as many matches on the little white piece of tape on the tape as you could.
Remember those?
Like,
do you remember those? I don't know if you guys got them in America, but here in Ireland, UK, you when you bought like a pack of blank videos or whatever, there'd be in each video there'd be this little set of like labels and stickers.
Oh yeah, the stickers.
Yeah.
You put on about.
Yeah, I like used to. Those things were like gold dust to me. I'd save them up. I would save them up. I'd have a big pile of them, and I'd put them on all my tapes to signify different.
Yeah.
And like I'd cover my tapes in labels, and I'd have all this stuff written.
When I'd run out of labels, I was so pissed off.
Oh,
I always felt they should have just sold labels. Perhaps they did. Maybe they didn't have them in Shamokin, Pennsylvania. But, like, I was always like, fuck, I'm all out of labels, and I just got this really good tape. I want to label it.
You'd get the stickers of all the letters in the alphabet, and I'd always, like, spell out, like, Alan's tape.
Oh, fuck that. No, I didn't get that creative.
Yeah,
I like to write down with a piece of pencil or pen.
It was... A magical time indeed, but so
I know. I love how we're talking about bootlegging Ring of Honor in 2002. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed.
I'd get the actual Ring of Honor tapes, and then I'd use my labels that I had saved up, and I'd plaster them all over the ROH tapes.
Yeah.
Oh wow, double label. Okay, I got you. That makes sense.
I think though, Rob, you're confusing because that big CM Punk promo that I remember they actually put on the website for free because it was so great. When, like, he admitted, like, my father was an alcoholic and this and that. Like, I don't think he did that live. I think he did that, true? Like, yeah, he did that, like, post-match, like.
Yeah, that was backstage.
I don't think that was live because I remember he was covered in blood, like, after that match.
Yeah.
And, like,
I'm a monster. Yeah, that one. The one I'm talking about is there was a 4-person scramble match with, like, Izzy and somebody, Carnage Crew, somebody else, and then.
The promo starts off by Cabana goofing around and going, everybody get on the Cabana boat. The Cabana boat. And then Punk just the mic off or something like that. I can't remember what it was.
And Cabana and Daphne had this moment. Oh yeah, that was a really good promo on so many counts. Like it kind of gave everybody an extra layer. And then Punk just goes ape shit and starts like ripping into Hat Guy and telling all the fans how they're all worthless and they're all abusing alcohol and drugs. And I was like, fuck, I don't like this guy already. And like, it was good. I liked it.
On the backstage one that they did, the key thing to me on that was the way Cabana, like the look on Cabana's face while Punk is screaming and talking. And Cabana's just got this kind of
serious,
serious, just kind of oh shit look on his face the whole time. It really adds.
Daphne too, because Daphne had such a wacky side, and when she's like looking seriously, you're like, fuck, that was a great act.
So the first big match that I saw the Expect the Unexpected match with the Devil Lock, and that was decent. But I mean, the first really violent match I saw between them was the chain match at Death Before Dishonor show, which we might as well get into detail on now. But let's start with that chain match. I thought that was really good. It has the huge angle at the end where after Punk wins, he's going to he's going to fuck with Raven some more, and then Tommy Dreamer comes out and they tie Punk to the ropes and pour alcohol down his throat, and it was just awesome. Punk's sell of it was amazing, just really great stuff. I remember for some reason Punk called out Danny Doring, who was like...
Yeah, they tied in like ECW with it a little bit because they had Danny Doring and then they had Dreamer. Like they kind of did tie in ECW with it a little bit. I like that little touch they had to it.
Yeah, I love that match. I don't know if it would hold up, but at the time I just thought it was a real violent, dramatic match, and I was a big fan of both guys. I think like to me the feud, like. Even though it went on after that, they had a cage match, they did Pick Your Poison and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, it went on.
To me, everything after that Death Before Dishonor was just, I wish it didn't happen, because I thought that was the perfect ending. Punk getting his comeuppance, everything ending, it should have ended there. I don't know why it went on like it did, because everything that came after it was kind of not great, and B, just kind of killed what they'd done previously, because it all still holds up, but it took from it a little bit. So I wish it ended where in July. But the rest of that show, you had let's see. AJ, this is all off memory. AJ and Red against the Briscoes in, I believe, the third match of the series.
Yeah, they had a little feud there for a couple months. You had
Paul London's Goodbye against Samoa Joe, and you had a 4-way between BJ Whitmer, Homicide, Colt Cabana, and Dan Moff. I think I nailed that.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible. That was the first of the big 4-way matches for ROH, and really just set the tone. I don't know if any even lived up to that afterwards, because that match was wild. And
there's a better one that happened before that. You skipped this show completely, but there was a January 2003 show, and it had B.J. Whitmer, Colt Cabana, Homicide, and Paul London in it.
Oh, yeah.
It was incredible. Yeah, both of those are really good.
I don't think I've even seen that.
Yeah, dude.
That was when they were in Pittsburgh. Yeah, that was like when they did a couple shows in Pittsburgh in 2003 for a couple months.
That match is fucking killer.
I'll have to search that one out.
Dude, Alan, if you watch it, I'm not even lying. If you watch it, that might be like your favorite Ring of Honor match from 2002 to 2004.
Who's it?
It holds up that well. It's so fucking good.
Tell me who's in it again.
B.J. Whitmer, Colt Cabana, Homicide, and Paul London from January 2003.
Okay, I'm looking for this now.
Yeah, it's fucking good, dude. It's even better than the one at Death Before Dishonor. My favorite part of Death Before Dishonor, and I'm going to get this in, low-key unprofessionalism.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. I show that to so many people, and people in this business do not like that match at all and hate low-key for it. That match is amazing. I love it. Deranged and Low-Key.
Oh my God, Low-Key and Deranged. That was what I was initially thinking was the pill one, but no, that was different because what happened was the show starts, and this is like ROH's biggest show ever at this point. It's the first time in the Rexplex. They had Jeff Hardy coming in, and it's a big celebration show, and it starts off by the Ravers taking over the ring, and it seemed like there was hundreds of them. They took over the show. You had the commentators talking about how they were ruining everything, and then all of a sudden Low-Key's music hits, and it's like, oh shit, here he comes. And he had been off on an injury that he sustained on, I believe, the ROH Frontiers of Honor show in England, where he wrestled, what was that guy's name? Oh, fuck. Do either of you remember who Low-Key wrestled?
Flash Barker.
I remember too.
Flash Barker, who I could go on about that, but Low-Key and Flash Barker. Low-Key got injured; he was out for a while, so he makes his big comeback here, and he hits the ring, and all the Ravers back off, and then Low-Key kind of teases being cool with them for a second, and then he just unleashes kill on them, and it eventually breaks down into a match with him and who was it again? Deranged? Deranged is the one crazy enough or high enough to think he can actually take on Low-Key in a match. And it was one of the most vicious beatings I've ever seen. Rob, take it away.
Yeah, I mean, you either loved it or you thought it was bullshit, you know? I mean, Deranged...
What did Deranged think? Did Deranged love it or did he think it was bullshit?
I've brought it up to him on occasion, and... he didn't like it. He thought it was bullshit. Because he came in with Homicide, and he came up, and Homicide would train him, and he came up from New York, and, you know, he had trained with Key a little bit before, and it's just one of these things how Key is just gigantically unprofessional. But, like, it was awesome. I'd be lying if I said, I was unprofessional. But I thought it was fucking great. It's just like, it's child abuse. Like, watch it again. It's awful. And like, he slapped the shit out of Cloudy, who looks legitimately younger than I do, at this show. It's really funny. Like, a 12-year-old Cloudy's in the ring too, and he gets slapped real hard. So it's awesome though. It's a pure ass kicking. It's my highlight of that tape. It's a good tape too. DVD even. But yeah. Fucking Low-Key, dude.
For sure.
And he had that long ass fucking stringy hair that he just whipped him around by his hair. It's like,
Jesus, yeah. A few other things to mention from that show. Jeff Hardy, as I said, he debuted at his only appearance. The famous just getting booed out of the building, which sounds like happened to his buddy Shane Helms this weekend. Fucking Hurricane. But anyway, it was Jeff Hardy and Joey Matthews and a dude called Crazy K.
Kirby Mack. He's in Team Action now, or they used to.
What?
Not so much, but
You're kidding me.
Yeah, Crazy K, right, Rob? That's Kirby Mack from.
Oh my god! I always thought Team Action when I saw them a couple of months ago, I just assumed they were two brand new guys. Wow, that's cool. One of them was Crazy K. That's nuts.
Yeah. But, they're not in CW. They're not. You don't see them in CW that often anymore. So
they're not. I kind of like them, but
I thought that they were alright.
So that was something else to say the least. But the one other thing that was actually good on the undercard was I don't know if it was a 6-man tag, an 8-man tag, or what, but it was a hardcore match between
it's an 8-man
Academy and the Carnage crew of Loke DeVito, Masada, and just incredible. And a quick question about Masada. Had he, because I saw him here as kind of like I always thought of him as, quote, the other member of the Carnage crew. And he was just kind of a guy that you kind of didn't notice much. And then all of a sudden, a couple of years later, I'm hearing about him being this big deathmatch star in Japan. I was like, is that the same as Masada? And then I was confused with the fact that there was the Nosawa and Masada guy.
No, it's definitely the same guy. Yeah.
I know. I know it is the same guy now, but I'm just like, at the time, I was like, is it the same guy? And
I got you. Yeah.
He went.
Confusing.
How did he go from one to the other? Like, he just seems like a real random guy to all of a sudden go over to Japan and be a big star over there.
Yeah, he was fucking crazy. Him and Hot Stuff Hernandez were so awesome in those matches. And fucking blind ass Eddie too.
Yeah,
those two guys just made every match unbelievably dangerous. I thought someone could possibly die. It was nuts.
There was some guy that took a bump that they should have died. Like, who was it? Fast Eddie? I know that
probably
this one bump that the guy should have died by all rights.
I know Justin Credible took a pretty big bump. They actually, like the 4-way that Rob had mentioned, these guys actually had a better match in Pittsburgh a couple months prior at the round robin challenge too that they had. It was Hot Stuff Hernandez and Masada were in that, and I remember Hernandez. I think he picked up. Masada one of the Masada just tossed. I mean, it was just
the best release power bomb in the history of the business. I'm going on record. That I was going to say the same thing. Yep.
Alan, after you check out that 4-way from the January show, go to get the April show from 2003 and watch that 6-man. It's unbelievable. It's a really, really, really good match.
And Hot Stuff does his dive and kind of misses and almost kills himself in that match.
Yeah,
too. It's fantastic.
And this is when the Asian guy from Tough Enough was sitting ringside too for it or something like that, and he got his ass kicked afterward by.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember Asian guy from Tough Enough, wasn't it?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Did they pay him to go, or was he just? I would
probably. It's funny because this is so fucked up. I swear to God, all of us are on the same wavelength. The other day, I was at my parents' since my car was stuck in my original hometown, and I got out a box of tapes, and I watched an old tape that my friend Wes made me, and it had the jacked up guy that fucking fucked, what's her name, Jackie Gaeta on Tough Enough, and he was on Jersey All Pro in a white t-shirt showing off his abs.
He was the guy that got hooked on meth or something, wasn't it?
I don't know. All I know is the Hit Squad came out and beat the shit out of him. So, there was this awesome time in wrestling when, people from Tough Enough would, infiltrate CZW, Jersey All Pro, and Ring of Honor, including Asian guy from Tough Enough.
Wait for Stone Cold to host Tough Enough. That's going to be amazing. But anyway, that was all I really wanted to say about Death Before Dishonor. Great show. It was, my favorite show in the world for a long time. I loved it. I remember I watched it on a Halloween. It was a couple of months after it happened. Me and my friends sat down and watched it before we went out on Halloween night, and just it was so much fun. And anyway, the So, let's see, other things in 2003 we want to talk about. Samoa Joe wins the title, as we mentioned, at Expect the Unexpected, and what were some of the memorable Joe defenses he had early on in his reign for you guys, Mike?
Yeah, he won it at Night of the Champions, actually, not to be super ROH or anything like that. Just
no, that's the point. The point of this show is to pull out as many geeky as we can. So
the first real big Samoa Joe match I can honestly remember, even though he did have like a match here or there, I guess on the Epic Encounter, was he had a match with Homicide, which was one of his first of many matches he had with Homicide, throughout his ROH career. And I think this was
Scramble Madness?
I think it was like the match, it was at Do or Die when it was Joe and Homicide, and like it kind of showed off. Yeah.
The Muscle Buster for the first time, and Julius
Super Muscle Buster
showed up for the first time. And it was a Muscle Buster off the top, like middle rope as well.
Didn't the ring break, or am I thinking of something else? I don't
remember.
A lot of things are like coming back into me. Yeah, maybe I'm thinking. I remember this was like one of the first shows too, like when they switched the lights and it was a lot darker. So I'm trying to see it.
I remember Key came out on crutches or with his arm or whatever. He's injured, and he like slapped Homicide like Sting did to Luger against Flair. He's like, "Come on, man, you got this shit, N-word," and then like Homicide got all mad and he started like throwing punches at Joe. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Real quick, another thing to point out: Joe won the belt against Xavier in the March show in 2003. Same show had two of the best matches in Ring of Honor history. Briscoes against Red and AJ, and that was the finish where he did Frankenstein on the dude in the spot shot. And the other match, which still holds up today, low key,
right after it,
Flash. What the fuck? Oh my god!
Oh
that match is so unbelievably crazy. The fall away backwards top rope key crusher is one of the greatest things ever. That match is fucking.
I need to rewatch that match. I completely forgot that match existed, and I love that match. So I need to rewatch it ASAP.
Does he do a shooting star pile driver or something like that too? I think
he does. He doesn't mean to, but he does. Yeah. Oh my god!
How does that work again? I vaguely remember it. Explain that to me, Mike.
No,
I don't even know. It's so confusing.
Yeah, Fleisch was on the top rope, but I think he went to do a shooting star press, and you just kind of caught him between the legs and just kind of.
No, they fucked someone up, and Loki's like, "Fuck it, I'm just taking a pile driver," and he just jumps in the position. It defies any logic or
so Loki was basically on his feet, and Jody was doing the shooting star, and Jody lands into a pile driver on Loki.
I'm not even sure. You gotta watch it to comprehend.
I can't wait to check this out. So that was what were we saying? Oh yeah, Samoa Joe matches. Joe, I vaguely remember the match where he wins the belt from Xavier, and it was decent, but he had the match with Paul London was very good, but again, not amazing. And I mean, Joe in his early title defenses wasn't really setting the world on fire, but he was a step up from Xavier, and I think everyone recognized that. And I think the first time, when for you guys?
I could tell you, I was gonna say the first time I really liked Samoa Joe was actually that maybe like toward almost a year later when he beat Jay Briscoe in that cage match.
I was gonna say that was when when really he was like, oh my god, this guy is the man of the company. But I will say that a couple of months earlier, he had a match with AJ at I think War of the Wire that was really fucking good, and those two were both just kind of.
Oh, those guys are always awesome together. Yeah. I have yet to see anything less than a great match from Joe versus AJ, so.
They had a real good match there at War of the Wire. For some reason I remember.
Mike, were you at their match in Hazleton? What a random thing to ask.
No, I was actually at their match they had in Scranton at the CYC, but I know they did have a match in Hazleton too. Like,
dude, I was there in Hazleton, and I had to bring this up because like Larry Zbyszko was there, and I swear to God, it was such a fun show. Like, it's a horrible show of, like, shitty matches like ECWA, but then you had AJ and Joe wrestling in Hazleton, and it was in a really bad area. It was awesome. But anyway, I had to ask that. I had to.
No, I'm glad you did. I actually saw him in Scranton at the old Catholic Youth Center that WWF ran until they got kicked out for being too
vulgar.
Sex and violence.
Jesus Christ. Anyway, well, you know what Joe match I liked? I liked Joe match a year before you guys started liking Joe matches. It was on April 12th, 2003. It was the Epic Encounter with Danielson London. Now, Joe wasn't in that match, but he was in a match with, like, Stryker, Reckless Youth, and some other guy. Don't know who the other guy was.
Cabana. I'm reading the results as you're saying it. It was called Cabana.
And it was a four-way.
Really good. Like, Reckless Youth is the lost like, obviously he's Reckless Youth. Everyone knows the story there. But
I just know Reckless Youth as the one that the guy who missed the Chikara show once because he like couldn't get a babysitter or something like that.
Yeah, he's so fucking good. He was probably the best guy on the card anytime he was in Ring of Honor. That's how highly I think of Reckless Youth.
I've probably seen 2 Reckless Youth matches in my life. If you talk to Danielson, you talk to like I think Chris Hero, like everybody puts over Reckless Youth is like the shit. He's the man. Someone listening to this make Alan a Reckless Youth comp. I will pay good money for it. Finding really good quality footage is always tough too. But like, I remember he was scheduled to wrestle Chris Daniels, over the summer 2003. And I was so excited that we were finally going to get all these Reckless Youth dream matches in Ring of Honor because I knew he was so fucking good. Well, they called him Tom Carter because, Ring of Honor.
The technician,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, the technician Tom Carter. He got in really good shape and he really kicked ass in the few matches he had. And then, like, he just left and never was booked again. And it's just like, fuck, you know? But he's the man, dude. Like, I will agree with Alan and ask people, find us Reckless Youth comp, or I'm sure Smart Mark makes them. I'll have to I'll plug them and say, look at it on their site, because it'll be quality DVD footage of Reckless, which is something on my own.
Yeah, and another thing is, like Reckless, like, was like that, you know, like one of the big guys, like you would read about him in PWI, you would read about him, you know, he was under, you know, WWE, this was only a couple years after he was under WWE Developmental, you know, too, so, I mean, this was kind of like him coming out, and he was just kind of there for a little while, and then he just kind of went away, and that was pretty much it.
Dude, I swear to God, last week at the Ring of Honor TV tapings, if, like, Reckless Youth was there instead of Devin Storm for just 2 shots, you'd still hear me marking out. Like, that'd be fucking insane.
Yeah.
Because he's probably still very good. Because God knows he took enough time off and didn't wrestle. So, but yeah, he's the shit. Look for his stuff, people.
Also in 2003 too, before we forgot to mention, is right after the Death Before Dishonor, was the big Homicide Steve Corino No Holds Barred match that they had in Connecticut that I think you were there live for, Rob, and I remember back in
the other Death Valley guys were there live. I was not, but when I finally saw the tape, come on, man.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Speaking of, sorry, go ahead, Rob.
That match is, I'm telling you right fucking now, that whole match, from introduction to post-match, possibly my favorite thing ever in Ring of Honor.
Which match was this?
I'm telling you. Corino and Homicide.
Oh, okay.
That bitter friends, stiffer enemies.
Bitter friends, stiffer enemies.
That was the same, if you remember, that was the same show when Low-Key knocked out Dan Moff. Yeah, and that kind of ended that like on a whole down note. But I remember people coming home at the time and going on the internet. This was like when message boards, I was kind of first getting around to going on message boards and stuff like that. And people were like really putting that over match at the time, being like awesome. So.
Yeah, that shit is unbelievably good. And I remember Corino was so awesome. He was the opposite of himself on commentary, from in the ring, on the mic. Bobby Cruz, every time I see Bobby Cruz, I bring up to him that his ring announcer gimmick is like my favorite thing, like almost ever in Ring of Honor.
Oh, yeah.
Ring announcer. He had to get fucking water because he was becoming parched from naming all of Corino's title wins, and it was just unbelievably good. There was blood, there was violence. Corino had blonde hair. His hair was red by the end of the match. It was bleeding. It's like, fuck. You gotta watch that again, Alan. It's really good.
Yeah, I love that match. That was just unbelievable. Those two guys have something. They have a kind of chemistry wrestling each other. Very rarely find two guys with similar chemistry. It's something special, and their feud that they've had for however many years was just really one of these great things in pro wrestling all those times. And I loved it. And it's funny how early it started, because I mean it was the Glory by Honor show from 2002 with the Low Key and Joe match and the 0-1 guys being in there. Or sorry, it was the 0-1 guys came in after. It's like the show starts with Backstreet Boys against, they call out Homicide. He says he'll team with anyone from the back, and Carino comes out to be his partner, and they're friendly with each other, and then they just accidentally miscommunication, or one of them, Carino pulls Homicide off during a pin, and they just kind of tease dissension, and then it came from there, and all of a sudden they're stabbing each other with forks and crazy shit like that. But it was a hell of a feud. Obviously ends with the barbed wire match, which was brutal and awesome as well. And just that's if you want to know how to do a barbed wire match, that's how you do it. But Rob, you mentioned a match earlier that I wanted to kind of ask you about, the Danielson Paul London match. And I heard something about how this was the match where was one of the first matches with the "Let's Go X, Let's Go Y" chants, and it was started by you and Phil Schneider. One of you was you were chanting for London, and he was chanting for Danielson, and it was the spawning of years of "Let's Go Wrestler X."
Yeah, I don't know. Everyone says, "Oh, self-important, Rob Naylor." I'm not going to say I'm the guy that started it. It's a rather dubious distinction, but that's what Tom and some other people from Death Valley Driver that were there claim. I was definitely yelling, "Let's go London," and I'm pretty sure Phil would have been yelling, "Let's go Dragon." It would have been
pretty hard to out-yell Phil Schneider. That's a loud man.
Yeah, so I don't know. It might have been. You could put that on me, but they were saying it in World Class in '82, for Christ's sake. But in Ring of Honor, it became a really annoying chant.
That day,
and you know what? It shouldn't even have ever happened, because Low Key was supposed to wrestle Paul London anyway. So.
Ooh. Yeah, did they ever have a singles match with each other anywhere? Ever?
No, they didn't, and it's really unfortunate, because I think in 2003, yeah, if you could, you never put Paul London. Come on now, let's face it. I think that it wouldn't be as good, but I think that at the time in 2003, that would have been incredible. That would have been the best match ever. I was one of the people that came home that day and went on the internet and was like, "Golly gee, guys, 5 snowflakes, great work, good psychology." I don't even like rewatching that match. That was the match that was held in such high esteem, best match in company history, blah, 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 blah. I thought they had good matches, but I don't know. It was a little too slow for my liking. I don't know. They had a match prior to that I thought was even better. It was just part of one of those things where a million people would come out and wrestle each other. They do a gauntlet, I think it was. I thought that was even better. But, at the time I definitely loved that match. But looking back on it, I just wish fucking Low Key would have been there to wrestle Paul London. But thanks, Flash Barker, you fucking prick. Ruined everything.
Oh, Flash. Anyway, so let's see, what we get on to next? Anything you guys want to talk about as an idea for a topic? I'm running dry here. Mike.
I'm kind of looking, because you said you wanted to do up to Feinstein leaving, which
I was thinking around, there's definitely stuff in 2004. I feel like there's something from 2003 we haven't mentioned, but I guess. Oh
wait, I got something. The All Japan show.
Yeah.
Dude, but the match I have to mention, the match I remember the most, the match I love with all my heart, involved John Walters, a wrestler who I think is the worst wrestler of all time. However,
we need to talk about the Field of Honor.
Oh, yes.
Let's get on Walters and Xavier from Final Battle 2003.
Final? Was John Walters? No, it wasn't. Sorry.
I hope it wasn't. It didn't deserve to be. The Field of Honor final was the same show, and it was Matt Striker and B.J. Whitmore, and it was awful. But Xavier and John Walters was fucking nuts.
That was a fight without honor.
Yeah, and there was a ladder involved, and Xavier did like a springboard 450 to the floor. Xavier did his jump Owen Hart butt to the rope, moonsault through a table onto John Walters, and John Walters did a lung blower off the top of a fucking ladder on Xavier, and they just did everything under the sun. It was a really progressive ladder match for that time. Xavier's been in two of my favorite ladder matches of all time. I think Xavier's in both of mine. So like him and Loki from 2001 and him and John Walters Final Battle 2003. It was fucking incredible. And fuck the Field of Honor. I remember when it first came out, like they didn't have what do they call those things? Gabe would write every day about Ring of Honor. What was it called?
The Newswires, right?
Yeah, it wasn't the Newswire though. There was something that predated it where like every week they just throw all this shit at you and you'd be like, whoa, what am I talking about?
Yeah, I remember that.
It was a better idea too. I liked it better that way. But like, they're like, there's a field, and in that field will be honor. And I'm like, what does this mean? And like, everyone's like, what's gonna happen? It's a Field of Honor. And then like, they just announced this wag-ass tournament, and they had all these, second line wrestlers, in this field of honor. And like, there'd be one winner, and who won it? Like, I think B.J. Whitmer beat Striker. It might have been the other way around. It didn't really mean anything.
Matt Striker beat B.J. Whitmer, and then I guess after the match, like the locker room emptied and celebrated, and like I guess they all had to pretend like that the match was great, even though it just sucked. It was terrible. That's funny to go back and watch that. Yeah.
Brutal.
But yeah, that was pretty much it. Like, if you figure like a lot of like the fall of 2003 was, they had the War of the Wire, which ended the the Raven and CM Punk feud. They had they brought in Terry Funk. I remember for Glory by Honor that year. For Remember, they had and I know Tom always talks about it. And Rob, you may remember this match, and I guess it's like the Lost Great Scramble match, but it was like from Empire State Showdown when they had they did like some rare show like in like outside Rochester or something like that. And I remember being really good. I don't know if you don't know what I'm talking about or no.
Was that Shelley and Jacobs?
Yeah, it was Shelley Jacobs, the Outcast Killers, Ring Crew Express, and Fast Eddie and Don Juan.
Yeah, that was when was that when Shelley wore the Huss boots?
Yeah, that was probably around the time he was.
Yeah, it was just for one match. It was like a scramble match. Yeah, that was nuts. That was I remember like I didn't buy that DVD, and then like maybe a year later or whatever, I was just flipping channels. I was like, oh, I'll check see what's on the wrestling channel, and it's like, oh, it's Ring of Honor. Oh, it's Ring of Honor I haven't seen before. I might as well watch this scramble match. Dudes are coming out, and I'm like, oh, Shelley Jacobs. These guys are meant to be good. And then it's like, holy shit, this match rocks.
I think in 2003, some of the names got to be stale. A lot of the same guys. Hey, Chad Collier. Ooh, Matt Striker. Oh, wow, Demos.
Josh Daniels.
No, I'm not going to count him yet, because I remember there was a match in 2003 where it was like, was it Jimmy Jacobs, Roderick Strong, Josh Daniels, and somebody else in a four-way match before the September 2003 show with Funk and Punk and all that stuff on it. But I remember seeing Roddy, and I was like, fuck, he's really good. I saw him and Sanjay have a great match in Jersey All Pro, and he should be in Ring of Honor. And they didn't bring him back for like another fucking year. But like, I remember really liking that. Teddy Hart wrestled TJ. And it was a very good match, real technical, really ground-based. It holds up pretty well, too. And then, of course, Gabe told Teddy to save his dive. And then Teddy did like one of the greatest dives in wrestling history on Special K later that night. And then afterwards, Teddy was like, fuck you, Gabe. You're trying to steal my heat. You're a piece of shit. So like, he didn't like Gabe for a while. So then they brought him back with Scramble Cage. And we're going to talk about
main event spectacle.
The November 2003 show that they ran at the Rexplex. I was not there. Out of every show Ring of Honor has ever run, that is the show I am the most angry that I was not at live. Because I think seeing Jack and Teddy do their dives off that cage and the chaos that ensued would have been like a wrestling fan moment. Like, fuck. Like, I remember seeing a still of Jack in the air doing his dive. Wax took the photo. Wax was taking pictures from at the time. And I was like, what the fuck? What's he doing? There's no way he rotated all the way over again. Did he? And, like, you heard he did a double moonsault, but you weren't sure. People were calling the move right. What the fuck he had. When I finally saw it, I couldn't fucking believe it. And I was friends with Jack at the time. He's like, I did a double moonsault. I'm like, no, you didn't. And he's like, no, I kind of did. And I'm like, bullshit. Then when I saw it, I was like, jeez, fucking Christ. I didn't think this was even humanly possible. So, yeah, Jack and Teddy were the most exciting thing about Ring of Honor. I remember at the time Low-Ki quit. Low-Ki was supposed to face Homicide on that show. November 1st, 2003, Low-Ki quit. He didn't want to fucking do a draw with Homicide. So then Gabe and him had to blow up, and he left. And I was like,
what a jerk. Isn't Homicide like his real close friend? Like, what an asshole.
Yeah, and he's like, well, I'm gonna leave. And Gabe's like, well, no, you gotta put someone over before you leave Ring of Honor. And he's like, well, okay. And like, well, we want you to lose to Homicide. No. And then he's like, I'll do a 15-minute draw with Homicide. That's how it went. And then Gabe's like, fuck you, I'm not gonna give my fans a 15-minute fucking draw because they'll be even more mad that happened. So then Low-Ki's like, well, whatever. And then Low-Ki went on his website and he posted that he was off the show and he was going to do an All Japan show instead, which he didn't even end up doing. So it's like, then they broke up. I don't know how to use that term. Gabe and Low-Ki broke up and they didn't get back together until fucking 2004 when shit hit the fan. But, I remember being so sad Low-Ki left, but then Jack and Teddy they had those crazy haircuts, their wild gear. I was like, what is this all about? And then, like, as soon as they hit, they were gone because Teddy did his deal. And I remember being so pissed because I was like, fuck, Jack, Teddy, and Low-Ki were, like, my favorite guys. And I had not even seen Jack yet, aside from Stampede tapes that I sent to Gabe. But I was like, fuck, this guy, he probably would have been awesome. So I remember, I don't know if I have the email still, but I'm always emailing Gabe. Is Jack still going to be on the show? Jack can be on the show? Wasn't his fault. He knew anything stupid. Better bring Jack back. So then Jack came back in, like, early 2004, and I was like, thank God. But, yeah, man, Jack and Teddy was the shit.
That's what you figured, man. Jack got thrown, like, basically into, like, the biggest angle in the company, or, like, one of them anyway, and you figure, like, where would he have been if Teddy was still around, so...
Yeah, you don't really know, but it was just a really fresh act. And then, like, I remember it was all over before it even started. I remember I hated CM Punk so bad. I was like, fuck him.
Yeah, I remember
he's keeping Teddy out of Ring of Honor, that prick. I always believed Teddy when he'd be like, yeah, fuck him. I don't like him. He does drugs. And I'm like, oh, I believe you.
I remember, one of the first times I ever heard about you, Rob, like, it was when CM Punk made the remark about you in commentary. So I just thought, oh, that Rob Naylor guy that posts on the internet, and is on Joe Gagne's show, he must be really good friends with CM Punk, or CM Punk must know him and like him or whatever. And then I don't know if I was talking to you or I saw you posted somewhere about how you used to hate CM Punk and you sided with Teddy Hart and their whole thing, and I couldn't believe it. My world was turned upside down.
I fucking hated CM Punk. Like, anyone that wronged Teddy Hart, I was just like, fuck you, And then, like, he had that match with Joe, the hour-long match, and I did, like, a write-up of it, and he sent me an email, He's like, I know you don't like me, but, thank you. I read into that match exactly the way we figured, and, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm like, oh, shit. So, and now he tweeted about me because he's a good person. Yeah, I love him. Like, he's a good dude, and, like, obviously Teddy's an idiot. But, they're friends now. I don't know if I ever told this publicly, but, like, they're friends now, so that's good. Teddy bought him a suit at WrestleMania last year. He's like, you tell CM Punk, I'm going to buy him a suit. It's got air conditioning. I don't know, it's not. He's like, okay, I might not. He's like, let's give me a custom-made CM Punk tracksuit. I'm going to get him one. I'm like, well, please do. So then, like, Punk, like, a week after WrestleMania last year, he's like, yo, your boy Teddy bought me a suit. I'm like, yes. I'm like, you guys are friends. But, yeah.
Rob sounds like the dude who's got his mom and dad to get back together after 10 years being divorced.
I know. Like, I even remember Punk and Jack weren't friends either. And I'd always tell Punk, he's a good dude, and don't be a dick to him. He's just guilty by association. So Jack, to this day, is always like, man, Rob Naylor, I don't know how you did it, but I'm friends with Punk now. And I'm like, all right, I guess so. I'm a great communicator, Alan.
So, let's see. There's something there I was going to bring up. Punk. Oh, yeah. So, the final battle show with the All Japan guys, you had Muto, Arashi, Kaz Hayashi, I think then, yes, the Second City Saints wrestled not Yuko Miyamoto, Kazushi Miyamoto, and Tomoaki Honma. And, that show, like, compared to later Japanese dudes coming into ROH, like Dragon Gate guys and the Noah guys, it doesn't really hold to that standard. Kaz and AJ was decent, I guess, but I don't know, they didn't really deliver. Muto and Arashi. Arashi's not very good, never was very good, and so that was never going to be an amazingly great match. And Muto was doing his Muta shtick, so that was obviously going to just be about sort of cheering the Muta spots. So it wasn't really an amazing match or anything like that. So I don't think there was too much memorable there. So we'll go into 2004. And I think we'll talk about, say, the first couple of months of 2004, right up until the big changes. And So early on this year, I guess the big thing that happened was the Prophecy and Second City Saints had been embroiled in a big feud, and it culminated at I think it was called Battle Lines Are Drawn. And for anyone in Ireland, when I finished my leaving cert, the next day, the very first thing I did was watch the final battle. The Battle Lines Are Drawn. So as anyone who did the leaving cert will know, that show could have sucked the biggest dick ever, and I would have thought it was amazing, because I was in the greatest mood of my life at that point. And that was it was a really good show. Punk and Daniels headed their two factions going into this big 6-man tag war, and they put Daniels out. And this was the first big change, because Daniels and later AJ and Jerry Lynn all were gone to TNA and weren't going to be used anymore. Daniels was the first one to go, and he had been a fixture there since the start. I guess we probably should have talked about Daniels a bit more during this show, because he really was a centerpiece of the promotion. This big world title match with Samoa Joe, and for him to leave at this point was a really big change, and it really put Punk and Saints over majorly here. And I remember the promo they did afterwards where Cabana and Ace Steel and whoever else were like blowing little whatever you call those things, the hooter things, and they had balloons and all this goofy stuff, and Punk just sighed, and I think that was the first time he ever said, "Oh, my life is a war," and just kind of slumped into the wall. It was just tremendous stuff, and I remember really liking that. And what did you guys think of that whole deal, Mike?
Oh yeah, well, first off, before I mention that match, this was the same show that, if you recall, I think like Les Thatcher, because they were in Ohio, Les Thatcher helped him out and stuff like that, and he would get
my buddy,
and he would get a guy by the name of Nigel McGuinness, who not a lot of people really knew, onto these shows. He would get him, just a little HWA match, the dark match, not just the dark match, just in the undercard, kind of a throwaway match, and it's kind of cool to see, a couple of years later, the guy, became not only the world champion, but like if you go and look, like one of the most synonymous guys, synonymous names with the Ring of Honor.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So I thought, that's just for posterity, just to mention that real quick about this show, just to kind of show you where things were at the time. But you are right, TNA was getting a little bit, getting, I guess, bigger, and Daniels kind of signed, was kind of working with them now, and kind of moved away from Ring of Honor, and I guess I guess, in a way, it got Daniels out of Ring of Honor by putting over Punk as like the top guy with the Second City Saints, because going into 2004 and, the feud with, Ricky Steamboat and stuff like that, the Second City Saints were pretty big, and I think this kind of showed, this kind of like, gave Punk and the Second City Saints like a lot of momentum for around that year, and This was like kind of a weird time. Like I think like things really didn't kick into gear for me until that At Our Best show with that Joe J cage match and bringing back Teddy and all them. Because if you kind of look like they introduced a pure title, they had like a tournament at their second anniversary show. But like I really just wasn't interested in that time. Interested in that often at the time. I think like the first couple months.
I wasn't either. I was not either. Like I don't know. Like they did that angle at the end of the January show. And Jack was on that show too, I think, or he was on a show in Baltimore, whatever. But like, that early 2004 kind of sucked, and like it seemed like Field of Honor in 2003 killed things, and then there was that Japan show. It was very well received and a good show, but it's like okay, whatever. And then like that pure tournament, fuck, that's like a low point for me. But then I remember they brought my boy Low-Key back, and they had that match, Low-Key, Moff, Joe, and somebody and BJ maybe. I like that match. That match is very good. Everyone we watched that. But Punk and AJ did nothing for me. Punk in a pure wrestling role I didn't like because he's so colorful and he's just a guy that doesn't need a fucking pure title or anything like that anyway. So I was like, eh. So then, when everything came tumbling down in like February or March, it's kind of like, okay, what now? And like, by the time, shit went down, you then had Punk and Joe, Generation Next, and all this fresh new excitement. It's kind of like, all right, I'm on board now.
We should, I guess, know this was the point right here when, the whole thing with Feinstein kind of went down in a way too. So it was kind of around this time when, like, what time was it exactly? I mean, it was probably after the second anniversary show because they kind of quietly.
Yeah, it was like March. I think it was March 1st or 2nd.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it was the day that, like, Death Valley Driver and CZW fans had, like, the most traffic ever on their respective sites.
Oh, really?
I remember.
I remember that. I was a freshman in college at the time, and just, like, I remember just going back. I'll never forget that day. That was, like, one of those days, like, it's probably up there, like, with, like, Nick Gage robbing a bank, you know what I mean? It's, like, one of those days you sign on the internet and go on the message board, and you're like, what the fuck? And, like, did I just what did I just like wake myself into, like, going on, like, and reading this stuff? So it's crazy.
Yeah, it's up there. It's up there with 9/11. The joke there is somebody did say that.
Where were you when you found out, Feinstein was gonna fuck some 10-year-old boy and his wrestling promotion almost went under?
Yeah,
I remember. I came home from school that day, and I just doing something else, and then I got a text message from my buddy, and he was just like, "Oh, that guy from Ring of Honor is caught diddling kids," and I was just like, "What? What? Oh my God, Gabe is diddling kids?" and then I was like, "Oh, Feinstein. Okay, I don't know why I thought of Gabe as the sleazy one." but I did. So he was the one that I was thinking was responsible, and then I loaded up my dial-up internet with my 15 minutes I was allowed to use at that point, and tried to get as much info as I could in 15 minutes, and it was pretty shocking, yeah. And I was like reading the stuff that Bobby Heenan pulled out, and like talk about like Ring of Honor really being in trouble, and I guess that would be a good point to end things, because at this point, Ring of Honor was in trouble, and on the next show that we talk about Ring of Honor, we'll talk about how they got out of that trouble, and the cool things they did, and Generation Next, and all that good stuff. So, guys, both of you, start with Rob. Rob, give me any final thoughts you have on this whole period we've discussed in this mammoth show this evening.
Favorite things about Ring of Honor from 2002 to 2004 in March. Number 1, Low Key. Number 2, Double Moonsault. Number 3, Teddy Hart and his antics. Granted, he had like 1 or 2 matches, but no one remembers this. Maybe some do, but Teddy Hart had so much fucking buzz from like November 2003 when he did his fuck up to about May 2004.
Remember the TNA tournament that he was in where he wrestled Hoovy?
Oh yeah. Like he had such a retardedly huge buzz. I mean, people made mixtapes about him. I mean, come on. So yeah, it was really crazy, but God love him. He was exciting. Samoa Joe was the shit. The Briscoes were awesome. It was just really, really fucking good at the time. And like, I've not really gone back and watched too much of it, but like, everything was in the right place. Everything was fresh. Fans, and well, I'll say this to close, the fans were so much more welcoming to everything that was happening. They weren't just waiting to shit on things. I mean, there was negative fans, there always will be, but like at the same time, there was just such a great groundswell of support for people wanting to see.
Do you know what it was? Do you know what it was like? And I don't want to sound like nationalistic isn't the word because I'm talking about Irish fans, but it sounded like European. They were back then. It was like how European fans are now. Like the fans in Germany now, it's a 16 carat this year. What they'll be like is what the ROH fans were like in 2002. Or it's so different over in Germany for like WXW or even like the Dragon Gate shows that we had in the UK. It's like it's an opposite mentality of like everyone in that crowd. I'm not just talking about me. Like everyone in that crowd is like wanting the show to be good, and like if something bad happens, it's like everyone's kind of almost wanting to ignore it and just pretend it didn't happen. And like now in a lot of indie shows in America, it's the opposite, where people are looking for bad things to happen so they can shit on it. Back in 2002, it was like what I described the Dragon Gate show that I was at. Everyone
European
wanted the show to be good.
Are even better than Reseda. I mean, they're awesome. But I just don't like your guys' rings. There's my beautiful English there. The rings are small over there.
The rings on like the Dragon Gate shows were like regular US indie size.
Yeah, they were. I'm just saying. Overall, I don't like your rings.
I remember like the rings they had a few years ago. I remember watching FWA in a tiny ring, and that was real weird to me too. I didn't like that at all. So
the mats all wrinkled and stuff like that. I hate that.
Yeah, but I don't think that's too much of it. I don't see too many shows with the really small rings in the UK anymore. But I wouldn't think that would be too much of a problem these days. But I absolutely get what you're saying about the fans. It really was cool back then. Everyone, because I think it was just with ECW and that stuff dying, there was all these fans that were kind of left with nothing and they wanted something, and then ROH was here trying to provide something. Whereas now it's a case of all these same fans have had stuff for the last 10 years, and it's like it's still around, and they've just got, it's almost a case they just got tired of it. But anyway, Mike, some random thoughts you have?
Yeah, just like a lot of this stuff, I mean, you can say maybe it was the right place, right time, but I mean, Ring of Honor really did kind of fill that void in a way of like that super athletic wrestling or wrestling where people were allowed to say fuck. You know what I mean? Like, it kind of like was that promotion, you know what I mean, where you kind of had your flippy guys, like, like we were talking about the scramble matches kind of really got big first time. You saw people doing, shooting star presses to the outside, and like that shit was like, mind blowing back in the day. I mean, I remember like AJ Styles, did that in WCW like once, and you kind of would see that, initially in the first couple years, and that was great. And you kind of saw like this more, like a very more athletic based wrestling, and it's kind of why, there's still certain guys I still like today, like Davey Richards, for example, because of, the certain athleticism that they showed. And at the time of like a lot of these shows, I mean, it was like initially like the first time you were like even seeing like these kind of guys, because like, as I said, I mean, you're bringing these guys to Philadelphia from, the Midwest or from Florida or from Canada or from Texas or from California or wherever. I mean, you're not bringing in just, your local, whoever you're for your indie shows. I mean, you're bringing in like these top guys, and it really like, in a way, I mean, if it wasn't for Ring of Honor back in 2002, I probably wouldn't be talking now. I probably wouldn't be a fan of wrestling. I mean, in a way, like the indies are really what keeps me going, and, it really all kind of started, with Ring of Honor. So, or not what just saying Ring of Honor, because obviously it was from, CZW and Jersey All Pro and all that stuff, but Ring of Honor really was, in a way, the Pangea of, the wrestling back in 2002 and brought everything together. And I mean, look where it is today.
That took your fandom next level. I totally agree with all that.
Exactly.
Yeah, same for me, definitely. And I will say some random thoughts from me, and make these random. Remember Slugger, the guy that waited at the back of the building and then just hit the ring and just beat people up? That was odd. And then he'd go back. I always liked how he'd go back to the back of the building and put his sunglasses on or whatever, and just stand there behind the people. Can you imagine if you were the people standing beside him, and you're just this guy who just interfered in the match is standing behind me now as I continue watching the show? That's pretty odd. But that, and another thing, do you know who was who's always lumped in? He's always the guy who's just thrown in as a name that's kind of made a joke of oh, remember this guy, or this guy. Just he's never someone who's thought of as never really mentioned in great terms. But watching back on stuff this week, Quiet Storm was a fucking good wrestler.
Fuck yeah, man!
Not just a spot monkey or a guy who could do scrambles. He was a good wrestler. It was Quiet Storm and Chris Devine against Danielson and Modest in the tag tournament, and Quiet Storm is wrestling his ass off with those two guys who were two of the best technical wrestlers. And he was going hold for hold with them and looking really good. And I guess his size held him back a little bit, which is ironic because nowadays he's absolutely ginormous, jacked out of his mind, and guys are a lot shorter nowadays, so he doesn't. The shortness doesn't really hold him back too much.
He should evolve.
I would like to see him in Evolve. I really would. I think he'd be. I want to see what he can do in 2011 because he was real good. I was impressed with some of the stuff I've seen. And there was another funny bonus on one of those DVDs where
you and your bonuses, dude. What's the bonus? I'm excited to hear this.
It was just a Quiet Storm match from some indie show against whoever, but it starts off with not the match, but you see a camera peering out of a car, and then you hear someone talking. You're what's going on here? And they get out of the car, and I recognize the voice, and it's Feinstein. He's holding the camera, and he's "Oh, we're here at the Trenton station." And he gets on the phone, and he's "Oh yeah, hey, you there? You arriving? Okay, I'll be there in a half an hour." He's making these arrangements, and
where are you going with this?
He walks in. Sorry, it's not. In hindsight, it does kind of seem kind of bad. But anyway, he walks in the door at a trade station, and he's collecting Quiet Storm. And he had been on the phone to Quiet Storm, and he told him he was a half an hour away, but he was actually there. And then he collects him. He's "Oh, you like that big rib?" And Quiet Storm was chuckling. And anyway, he's "Oh yeah, you're a big superstar now, so we're going to do On the Road with you. Say hi to the camera." And Quiet Storm's "Oh, come on, no way." And it's really uncomfortable. And then Feinstein goes around going to old ladies and stuff. "Hey, Quiet Storm? He's a big superstar." And then it just ends and goes into the match. It was very, very odd. But those are my two random thoughts. And I suppose to close out the show, I guess all I have to say is, fuck you, Biohazard.